delayed meeting of the Corporate Infrastructure and Regulatory Services Committee budget meeting. Thank you all for struggling through traffic and weather and its effects to get here, and a particular thank you to all our teams who are out working to address those problems, often in hideous weather, and they're doing a splendid job. I'd like to ask those of members and officers joining the meeting remotely to remember to mute their microphones and turn off their cameras unless speaking. This meeting is being live streamed, and therefore if you're speaking, could you please make sure you do so into the microphone. We're not expecting a fire alarm this morning. Should one sound, please exit the room and follow the fire exit signs to congregate on the Cover lawn. Please ensure that your mobile phones and other personal devices are silenced. I will be working on the assumption that you've read all the papers in advance of this committee, and therefore Cabinet members, officers are asked to keep their introductions to the items brief, raising only the key points to the committee. In order to facilitate questions, we'd like to take one question per member at a time, and you'll have the opportunity for a supplementary question or follow-up question if you wish, and we'll go around the room and you'll get a second question after everybody else has had a chance to ask their first, if that makes sense. Just as a matter of courtesy, if you could address or refer to other members as councillor rather than by first names, and also that helps those watching from outside understand who you're talking to or about. And a final reminder, which I'm sure isn't necessary, but please refrain from side discussions whilst other members or officers are speaking. Unfortunately, due to personal circumstances, your usual chair, Councillor Brown, is not able to join us in person this morning, and therefore our first order of business will be to select a vice chair whose role will just be to assist me in making sure that we keep a running order of who wants to speak when. For ease, I'd like to nominate Councillor Abbott because he sat right there. Are we happy with that? Or thank you. Those in favour? You can move one place to your left, Councillor Abbott. Thank you. Moving on, we've received apologies for this morning's meeting from Councillor Brown, as previously mentioned, and Councillor Davis has informed the clerk that she'll have to leave by 12:15, which we'll be sorry
for that, considering the unexpected.
We'll be sorry to lose you, but please go when you have to. We also have Councillor Wilson, who will talk to the work of the Children's Scrutiny Committee, and Councillor Bailey, who will do likewise for the Health and Adult Scrutiny Committee. We have Cabinet members, Councillor Bukowski, Councillor Thomas, Councillor Cottle-Hunkin, and Councillor Clist, who's joining us online. We have Councillor Hodgson, I see also, and Councillor Brazil. It's almost a full house, so that's lovely. Declarations of interest. Please, if you have a particular interest, an interest in a particular item, please declare that at the appropriate time. The fact that you're a council taxpayer and this is a budget meeting is not a declarable interest. I have not been notified of any items requiring public participation, requiring urgent attention, or anything requiring public participation. So that being said, we'll move on to the main meat of this morning's business, which is to consider the 26-27 budget and capital programme, and we'll begin with the Vice Chair of the Children's Scrutiny Committee. You've received their welcomes, concerns, recommendations that will be submitted to Cabinet. But if Councillor Wilson, you'd like to just briefly take us through those, and then we'll see if members have any questions.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee. On behalf of the Chair of Children's Scrutiny, Councillor Biederman, who can't be with us today, I'm just going to give a very brief overview of the Children's Scrutiny Committee's thoughts and recommendations to Cabinet. Firstly, sincere thanks are due to the hard work and commitment of DCC officers across the whole Council for developing such a comprehensive budget with a one Council approach. The Children's Scrutiny Committee is grateful for a robust and open session held last week, which was both probing and encouraging. I would also thank fellow councillors of the committee for their active participation in what, for many of us, is an entirely new process. As a committee, we welcome an increase in funding for children's services of 7.7%, which reflects this council's firm commitment to putting young people's futures as the top priority in our strategic plan, and which will support children's services' emerging improvement journey. The committee welcomes in particular the support for in the budget for the key initiatives of early help, aiming to prevent families from reaching a crisis, Families First, timely tailored support for families, and Growing Futures, which will provide stable and caring homes for our most vulnerable and complex children. In children's social care, we are pleased that this budget keeps the focus of investment in Devon on the key strands of early intervention, multi-agency working, and keeping families at the heart of decision making. Learning from member visits to children's social care teams in North and South Devon has been very important and illuminating for us. We have heard firsthand that workforce development and retention is key to stabilising children's social care. Hence our recommendation to continue to develop and build on existing apprenticeship routes and grow our own pathways for social workers. We also welcome the recent increase of permanent social workers to 80% of the workforce. In common with the Health and Adult Care Scrutiny Committee, we also note the critical role played by our partner agencies in children's services and the commitment of all parties to drive improvement in both children's social care and inclusive education as we hold each other accountable. We are particularly concerned about the lack of clarity from the government around the school funding settlement for high needs, and the long delay in upcoming SEND reforms is also very challenging. Hence our recommendation that the budgetary risks arising from this uncertainty are explicitly reflected in the 2026-27 budget risk assessment. We're also concerned about the impact of low funding levels of schools in Devon compared to other regions, particularly in hampering school buildings from being adapted to enable children with SEND to be educated inclusively in mainstream schools. Some of the recommendations of the Children's Scrutiny Committee require joint working with other committees. For example, we are concerned about not in education, employment or training young people, or NEET young people, and how the access and uptake of education and training can be improved for them, including looking at the challenges placed by Devon's fragmentary transport system. This is an area we would like to focus on in partnership with this committee and by listening to the Devon Youth Council as part of our future work programme. So just to finish, in order to deepen our understanding as a committee of some of the matters arising from our budget scrutiny, we are proposing a number of deep dives and briefings on topics including school transport and in-house opportunities, the redesign of the virtual school, government fostering reforms, and the impact of the SEND white paper once published. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson, and I hope that members of this committee will welcome your suggestion that we work together on those issues. Does anybody have any questions for Councillor Wilson? I see none, so thank you. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you very much, committee. I'd like to, if I may, just start by bearing in mind the floods that took place yesterday, thank Meg Booth specifically and her team for the round-the-clock support that they've given to the Otter Valley and wider communities across our county. As chair of the Health and Adult Care Scrutiny Committee, I'd like to thank all officers within health and adult care for all their hard work, and I'd also like to thank the committee for the detailed and well-considered deliberations that took place in our committee earlier this week. I don't propose running through the concerns and the recommendations individually, but I think a specific theme that has come out is the consistent underfunding of this council, and how unsatisfactory that is, and how much more difficult it makes for our council to deliver services, and how unfair it is for the residents of Devon that they're underfunded in this way. So particularly underfunding for public health. So I know that our committee has previously written about the underfunding of our public health, which seems to have been drawn up years ago on some random algorithm, which is totally unfair. So yet again, we would like to take action about that to support our public health function, which is absolutely key for our residents. Again, we see that remoteness is not recognised in the fair funding allocation. So we would like to write to the Department for Health and Social Care about that. There are various things that we feel could be improved at Cabinet, and that's improving the equality impact assessment to be explicit in its inclusion of a health impact assessment, and also the budget risk assessment to reflect the Living Well in Devon programme. So just to be clear, the Living Well in Devon programme is a transformation programme where Devon County Council work with Newton. It's absolutely crucial to help deliver the savings that the service needs to deliver. So we're looking to save £19.8 million. And so one of the recommendations is that we have, as a committee, we have regular updates from councillors Clist and councillors Keeling on the work of that transformation work, because if we can't deliver those savings, then we're not going to be able to reach our target by the end of 26-27. So we want to work really closely and to ensure that that work progresses well. We would due members of our committee to go and see the work of Newton in Somerset Council tomorrow, but unfortunately, because of the weather and everything that's happened, that's had to be postponed. But it's an active piece of work that the Health and Adult Care Scrutiny Committee is doing to have oversight of that transformation programme. And I think one of the other things that I would just like to highlight as a committee is how closely we have to work with our NHS partners, and how much financial pressure the NHS is under, and how that then transposes onto us as a council and the pressures it puts our services under. So we need to work very closely with them. We particularly on things like discharging patients from the hospital to the different pathways. We need to work really closely and ensure that costs aren't shunted from the NHS unfairly onto this council. The budget for adult social care is very large, and so we need to really keep track of the transformation programme and what's happening with our NHS partners. So finally, one thing that the committee felt was that if you look at the budget, there's a section on within the health and adult care budget on grants to be made to community groups, and we certainly supported that. But what we feel is that we need to have a wider grant programme and community programme with our voluntary groups to support them and help and ask them to help support the work of the council, and to have a more comprehensive programme right across Devon, because if you look at those grants, there's maybe about 10 grants, and I think we need to work closely with our VCSE sector to support our residents. And I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that we in any way reduce our services, but I think we need to tap in more to the community groups across the county and to help fund them as well. So that's our final recommendation, number 8, that Cabinet works with Devon's communities and VCSE Assembly on a Devon-wide scheme to promote independence, improve outcomes, and support the sustainability of the wider adult social care system. So that's all I've got to say, but I'm very happy to answer any questions or hear what anybody has to say.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Just for members' information, if you weren't already aware, that the feedback from the 3 committees will be unified into a single document, and where there's overlap between recommendations from the separate committees, that will be identified in that document. Does anybody have any questions for Councillor Bailey? Very tame. Councillor Julian.
Yes, I agree with what she's been saying, Councillor's been saying. However, what worries me is that because we don't want to cut the services at all, but what's highlighted to me, what I was reading, was about multiple agencies. You know, we want to have everything in Devon. We have, you know, and we have non-for-profit as well in Devon as well. But agencies, they can be farmed off to other agencies, and they're making loads of money. And I feel that if we want to keep improving and not lose anything for adult social care and the children's scrutiny, and also foster care, which is both as important, but we don't want to lose this. It's important that we keep a lid on these agencies, because they can run away and they will cost this council a lot of money. So if anybody can reassure me that we try and keep away from the agencies, that'd be fantastic.
Thank you. I didn't spot a question in there.
Agencies, outside agencies, if we can keep it in-house, if we can sort of, sorry? Keep it in-house if we can, or non-for-profit agencies.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would disagree with that. Of course, we want to keep as much of the support as we can within Devon, and supporting our community groups. I'm not suggesting. I don't think we talked about on when we met, did we, Councillor Julian, on Monday, about outsourcing or sending anything out of this county, or to opt for commercial organisations over other authorities. So apart from we've appointed, or the council has appointed Newton as part of a transformation programme, but that's already been looked at, hasn't it, by our committee?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you both, and thank you also for the work that your committees carried out over the past few days. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend the Children's Committee, but was at the Health and Adults Committee, and it was, I thought, a very good session. So we'll move on now then to a overall presentation of the budget book and paperwork, and we'll begin, if we may. So we'll hear from Paul Bartlett, who is just trying to read his title, but and then head accountant for, and then we'll hear from Councillor Bukowski, and then from the Chief Executive and the Director of Finance and Public Value. And at the end of that little suite of presentations, we'll have questions from members. So if you can hold your questions until after those speakers have spoken, that would be great. So, Mr. Bartlett.
Thank you, Chair. The scrutiny pack you have before you presents the budget proposals in respect of communities and public health, performance and partnerships, corporate services, and climate change, environment and transport. The key tables within these papers will form the basis for the information presented in the published annual budget book. Excuse me. The introductory report sets out a 2026-27 target budget of £839.2 million for the whole authority, as agreed by Cabinet on the 14th of January 2026. More specifically for this meeting, for public health and communities, the target is 14.4 million, which is a net decrease of 1.2 million or 7.8% compared to the 25-26 budget. For performance and partnerships, the target budget is 5.7 million, which is a net decrease of 0.5 million or 8.1%. Corporate services have a target budget of 58.3 million, which is a net increase of 0.7 million or 1.2%. And climate change, environment and transport have a target budget of £96.9 million, which is a net increase of 5.3 million or 5.8%. The introduction and commentary, provisional local government finance settlement 2026-27 and the equality impact assessment sections of the introductory report are relevant to all committees. Service specific budget issues and the capital programme are relevant for this committee. The report is followed by the senior leadership commentary, which sets the scene for the council as a whole. Additionally, individual directorates have their own commentary, summarising the services provided, their performance, and any significant challenges faced. Each directorate has a summary table demonstrating how the 2026 budget has been built up, an analysis of total expenditure and funding streams, including any self-funded services, and relevant statistical information. The service statistics highlight key activity drivers, identifying the impacts on activity that plans and assumptions informing the budgets are expected to have. The papers include financial detail at service level, showing how the 2026 revenue budget has been constructed and explaining key movements from the current year. These will include the estimated impact of inflation, national living wage, demographic growth, contractual or legislative pressures, and any other service developments or investment. Likewise, it will list proposed savings plans that inform the budget. Assumptions and estimates, including those for income generation, have been developed with organisational senior management teams. Any significant risks to achievement or potential volatility are highlighted on a service-by-service basis in the risk assessment section of the scrutiny pack. And please note that anywhere figures are shown in brackets, this indicates that they are either income or a reduction in expenditure, both of which have the same effect of reducing the net budget. Towards the back of the scrutiny pack are consolidated tables detailing the grants that Devon County Council has agreed to issue to external organisations and an analysis of the staffing data. In addition to the 2026-27 revenue budget, the medium-term capital programme is also included. It is worth noting that the annual budgets may not total the scheme approval figure, as the scheme may span a period outside of the current 5-year programme. And finally, for convenience, the final pages of the scrutiny pack provide a list of abbreviations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bukowski.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members. Councillor James Witkowski, Cabinet Member for Finance and Public Value. Mr. Chairman, the report sets out the proposed revenue and capital budgets for the corporate infrastructure and regulatory services areas as part of the Council's 2026-27 budget setting process. I want to begin briefly by setting the financial context, because it is important to understand the environment in which these proposals have been developed. We're now working within the first multi-year local government settlement in over a decade. While that provides greater certainty for planning, it's important to be clear that it does not represent a significant uplift in government funding. For Devon, Core spending power slightly increases over the settlement period, but that headline figure is driven almost entirely by the government's assumption that councils will raise council tax to the maximum level permitted. When council tax is excluded, grant funding falls from year 2. That means the cost of maintaining local services continues to be pushed onto local residents rather than being met through increased national funding. This is not a decision that has been taken by this council, but a feature of the settlement itself. Against that backdrop, the service budgets have been developed on a prudent and fiscally responsible basis. The services under discussion today play a critical role in enabling the council to function effectively and deliver on its wider priorities. They include infrastructure, transport, climate and environment, regulatory and planning services, community and public health, and corporate support functions. Many of these areas are exposed to inflation, contract pressures, and demand that is not easily reduced without risk. The proposals before you recognise those pressures, while also requiring efficiencies, service redesign, and careful prioritisation. They balance investment in essential areas such as communities, highways, transport operations, digital and cyber resilience, and climate responsibilities, with the need to live within a constrained funding envelope. The capital programme in particular reflects a cautious approach. It prioritises statutory obligations, asset maintenance, and externally funded schemes. Importantly, this budget aligns with the Council's strategic plan. It supports our ambitions around maintaining and improving infrastructure, delivering a greener Devon, strengthening communities, supporting economic inclusion, and driving continuous improvement in how the Council operates. This is not a budget that overpromises. It's grounded in the realities of the settlement, conscious of future risk, and focused on delivering value for money while protecting the strategic plan priorities and the Council's ability to operate safely and effectively. Chair, before I hand over to my Cabinet colleagues, I would like to take this opportunity, if I can, to answer the question that was posed by Councillor Julian in the opening bit around agency. If we compare October to December 2024 with the same period in 2025, we have made significant reduction in agency usage. Spending has fallen from 4.5 million to 3.4 million, and hours worked have reduced from 83,000 to 66,000, and the number of agency workers have dropped from 173 to 143. So that represents around 1.1 million reduction in spend and a reduction of 21% in agency hours, and 30 fewer agency workers over the quarter. So, Chair, that does reflect a more controlled and sustainable approach to workforce management. So hopefully you don't mind me just answering that question in my introduction, but I think it's important that we got that message.
Thank you. That's useful information. And thank you for your remarks. I have both Angie and Donna lined up on my list, so I don't know who wants to go first.
I'm going to make commentary based on the role as head of paid service today, responsibility for the staff, and apologies, I'm recovering from a back injury, so I'm taking occupational health advice, keep moving, I'm standing rather than sitting, so apologies for that. Quite simply, this budget recognises the importance of the staff group. I'm absolutely delighted to see areas such as investment in legal services, which is an area of continued pressure in the council. We often forget our trade unions. Our trade unions are absolutely essential to us as a workforce, and the support, the advice, the guidance, the lobbying they do for us as professionals. And I'm delighted within this budget, there's a recognition of the scale of transformation that is taking place in the council and the ambition that you've set as a council, that means a lot of change for our staff and they need that additional support. So there is within this budget contained a recognition that we need to increase the support for the convener and recognise the roles that our trade unions do for us on a day-to-day basis in Devon. Alongside that, those transformation projects, we just can't ask people to do 2 jobs in a day. We need to recognise it needs support. So, you know, a big part of the budget is getting best value in adult social care. And it's fantastic to see that investment in that partnership so that we can learn from it and then take the learning into other parts of improvement in the council. It's important for me to talk about our partners today. complete assurance from the Chief Constable in writing of supporting the transformation that's required in the national reforms in children's social care. Really strong partnership working now at the front door with our police colleagues, and I have to pay tribute to that because that does affect the best value we get out of the budget. Hot off the press, I do need to report that we're doing extensive work with NHS locally, and we're doing that as Devon, Cornwall, Plymouth and Torbay working together, senior colleagues with our NHS partners, and really good, positive, constructive meetings taking place based on, you know, even already some of the scrutiny feedback in children's and adults. So I wouldn't underestimate the impact that the scrutiny functions have had in terms of those discussions and debates. And equally so, so many partners that contribute to this budget that are unsung in the paperwork that help us to do our job every day. But I think finally I would finish by saying that in all those transformation projects, just to support what the Cabinet Lead for Finance has said, that we absolutely accept as a staff group that you need to see best value for money. I'm so excited about the staff survey coming your way shortly, publicly, because in a year that people talk about challenge and distractions, such as things as LGR and the scale of challenges we face, actually we've had a really positive, improving staff survey that I know many organisations would be proud of. That doesn't mean to say it's perfect, but we are, the retention rates, the stability, you've just heard some examples, you know, 1.1 million reduction in agency spend in 1 quarter from last year to this year. All the indicators in that staff stability and the amount of people are now applying for jobs in our council is just astonishing and above all national indicators, and compared to private organisations, when we add it all together, our score that we get is probably one of highest in the country. So we're not just benchmarking ourselves with public organisations, but with national private organisations as well. So on that basis, I just want to say that as a staff group, we welcome all that support that we get, and equally so we are up for the challenge that you have set us in delivering the transformation, the strategic plan, and also ensuring that we deliver best value in that staff envelope. But finally, we really appreciate that you recognise and when we need to deliver change, that needs additionality. And with that additionality, we can go harder and faster and deliver earlier in terms of your ambitious agendas. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Angie, do you want to speak now?
Nothing to add at this time, but happy to help with questions. Thank you, Chair.
Which is a nice segue on to does anybody have any questions? I'll come to you. I'm going to kick off if I may, and then I'll come to you, Councillor Mitchell. We just in general, and what we see in the pack is an analysis of expenditure by destination, which service it's going to and how much. What we don't see is an analysis of expenditure by nature, what's staff costs, what's contracts, etc. I think that would be really useful information to have, because it would allow the committee, this is perhaps a note for the future rather than for this one, but it would allow the committee to get some feel for the sensitivity, say, to a higher than expected pay settlement or so forth. So if officers could take that on board, I presume that wouldn't be too difficult to produce. It's all in a spreadsheet. Angie.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to take that on board. I think we do show something of that nature when we produce the final budget book for Cabinet and for County Council, but we haven't in the past produced it for individual scrutiny committees, but happy to look at that as a future development. Thank you for the suggestion.
Thank you. Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair. I have a number of questions, but I'll just pick on one which is generic across the whole budget spectrum, and this is concerning the issue of savings. And I'd like to hear how past records of previous administrations, because often we get a situation where budgets are balanced by alleged notional savings that never materialize. And I'm particularly concerned that when we say we're making savings, that we can justify they are going to be made, because often you find in other authorities that often these savings effect end up being underspends rather than realistic savings, where people have not been employed, you end up with a poorer service, or when you end up with a poorer service, you often then get agency staff coming in and then you get overspend, so there's no savings at the end of the day. So I'd be grateful to know, in relation to the savings that are spread across the whole of this budget, how they compare to previous years and our success rate in previous years, and can we realistically deliver the savings that are outlined in the budget?
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Who wants to take that one?
I'll probably start off and then bring in the Deputy Director of Finance to talk about the success of delivering. But all of the savings that are set out across all of the budgets that have gone to all of the scrutiny committees over the last week or 10 days have firm delivery plans against them. There are no notional savings budgets. When it comes to the actual delivery, of course, things don't always go as you expect. So when we monitor budgets to Cabinet, we do set out in the table the what's been delivered, what's at risk of not being delivered. If something has changed or we're not able to deliver a specific saving that was approved, we set out whether alternatives have been found, a different way of making the saving. Sometimes that is one-off rather than ongoing, and that's not ideal, but at least we work across the authority to try and achieve that. I'll bring in the Deputy Director of Finance, if I can, to talk about where we are in the current year around delivery of savings.
He's sitting behind you, so you didn't see that the Deputy Director of Finance didn't seem that keen on this idea, but Mr. Thorpe.
Thank you. Yeah, so as Angie was saying, we do monitor that heavily in year. We have done in as many years as I've been here, essentially, and prior to that. For the current year, I think we're pretty much on track to deliver the savings within this year. As Angie said, though, we're setting the budget for the coming year. Things happen in year, stuff gets moved around, deliverability does get impacted, but it's around identifying that as early as possible and making sure that there's a measured response to that. I think you're quite right. Sometimes planned delivery is delayed. Sometimes services have to bring on something in a short-term one-off nature to ensure that those budgets are balanced. What we do try to do, though, if that happens and it has an ongoing impact into future years, we will reflect that in the budget and we'll come back through the discussions and scrutiny arrangements. So I think I can certainly give you a record of that over recent years. Last year, I think we were more or less on track as well, slightly under-delivered against the programme. Prior to that, it depends on year by year, and I think obviously the COVID years, I think that was when we were most off track from delivering the savings programme because of just the very nature of activity over those 2 years, really.
Thank you, Mr. Thorpe. Do you have a brief follow-up question?
If you could clarify the scale of savings we're predicted wishing to make in the forthcoming year against the scale of savings that have been made in the last year of the previous administration?
So last year, or the current year's target, is just over 21.7 million. This year, just going to the page. And it's 38.9. So it is significantly more than last year. That is driven by the transformation work that has taken place in adults in terms of the higher value. I'd suggest, though, that the current year is probably the outlier, and that in previous years it's been of a similar magnitude to the coming financial year. There was a lot of effort through this year's budget in terms of demand management, so not recognising the need to make official savings, but to actually recognise the cost differently. So it is more than the current years, budget, probably just under double, but prior to that, it's probably more aligned to the levels of annual savings that we were seeing for.
Thank you. Councillor Reid.
Thanks. Yeah, partly following on from that to a specific case. So the Public Health and Communities Directorate is seeing a really large reduction, 7.8% overall. And I was concerned to see that most of the cuts to this directorate seems to be falling on the library service, which is a really vital service a lot of our residents really rely on. It looks like roughly a 9% reduction, despite the report projecting that library visits are projected to increase by around 25,000 next year. And again, so savings and efficiencies are being talked about, but is this genuine savings in this case?
Councillor Reid, I hate to interrupt. We are coming on to the specific budget of public health and communities in our next section. It feels at the moment that this would sit better there.
Yes, fine.
Thank you. Anybody else? I'm just going to add one thing, and this relates a bit to my earlier question. I know in other councils who are members of the Devon Pension Fund, the actuaries have allowed a reduction in contributions because, praise the Lord, our pension fund is now fully funded, which is a remarkable achievement given the history of defined benefit pensions. Have they made a similar allowance for us in the coming year?
So the pension fund overall is at 100% funded currently. That does ebb and flow. It doesn't mean that we stay at 100 because there are many factors. Individual employers, though, are not all 100% funded. So different employers will have a different funding rate. For the county council, we're not at 100%, but there has been a reduction to our contributions for the next 3 years. So individual budgets have been prepared on the past rate, the current rate, and we're holding a saving as part of a central, what we call below the line, and that's about 3.5 million.
Sorry, so just to translate, we have an annual saving, or our pension contributions will be 3.5 million
less
than
the current year. Yes.
Okay. I mean, this is, I think, highlights my earlier point because that doesn't really show up anywhere, and that's a significant chunk of change.
That will form part of the considerations by Cabinet and County Council, not individual scrutinies. So it's collectively across the whole organisation.
Thank you. Councillor Mitchell, back to you.
Could I ask a question based on paragraph 413 on page 7 of the report generally? This is about the homelessness, rough sleeping, domestic abuse grant. Could you explain to us the role in relation to homelessness, which is a shared, is as far as we're concerned, a district council responsibility, and whether any of this funding received by the county council in this consolidated form now is shared with district councils, and on what way it is, in the way in which is shared with district councils, because I know one particular council is very concerned about potential loss of income from Devon County Council to support its work in homelessness.
Happy to pick that one up, Chair. So this is a generic title that government used for this grant. Several different grants have been rolled into it. For the County Council, we don't receive homelessness funding. Our element of this grant is the domestic abuse element, not homelessness. That's, as the councillor says, is a district responsibility, and the grant funding goes direct to those districts.
To clarify, the funding that we get under this heading is not money we would automatically or consider distributing to other local authorities.
Good. Councillor Brazil.
Yeah, no, we don't. Just on this, because I know homelessness is a very sensitive and emotive issue, and people are rightly concerned about it. I just add that the county overall probably spends about £90 million on homelessness prevention, be that care leavers, be that supported accommodation for vulnerable adults. So And that comes out of our more general budget on both children and adults. So whereas it's absolutely right for other councils to hold us to account. I think that they should be aware, and I have told them, but they choose to ignore it, that we do actually invest a considerable amount of money in trying to alleviate homelessness in the county.
Thank you. So, I see no further questions, so we will move on, as promised, to Councillor Reid to the specifics of the Public Health and Communities budget, to be found on pages 20 to 29 of your packs, with the narrative on pages 8 and 9. We can start with any opening remarks from Councillor Cottle-Hunkin, if you wish to make some.
Okay, thank you. So I've got here, the government has confirmed that the Household Support Fund will cease in March. The fund will be replaced by the new Crisis and Resilience Fund from April 26, with the council receiving indicative funding information for the next 3 financial years, including 8.4 million for Devon County Council in 26-27. In line with government guidance, the fund will focus on providing crisis support to people in financial shock, where there is a sudden unexpected expense or drop in income, and where right to do so, will offer additional housing and wraparound support, helping households achieve a more stable financial footing. Cabinet will be asked to consider the council's approach in March, which will support the delivery of the fund through multiple strong partners. Given the financial pressures across the council's budget, the community's core budget is subject to a net reduction from 25-26 of 1.2 million, which is a reduction of 7.8%. As you all know, we are currently in the middle of a library consultation, which has already received over 14,500 responses, which is amazing. Libraries have evolved over many years, and this will help us to better understand how people use them, as well as giving an insight into what people think about potential ways to change our existing delivery model and to enable a more flexible and sustainable approach. This includes use of technology, greater use of volunteers, and the potential for community-led models. We are not proposing to close any libraries. We are committed to protecting our libraries. The consultation ends 22nd of February, so please do encourage everyone to get involved to help shape the future of the service. Thank you, and happy to answer any questions.
Before we have questions, does Mr. Kitchen, Mr. Brown, Mr. Bartlett, anybody want to add anything to that? In which case, it seems only fair that we return to Councillor Reid.
Thanks. Yeah, so following on from the big reductions that we're seeing in the library's funding, I visited the library in Exeter last year, and it showed me around, and was just amazed at all the services they provide for the local communities, not just books. It's like a warm place to visit. It's a place to meet up with people. There's technology assistance, people struggling with IT, all sorts of things. And I didn't get the impression that they had lots of efficiencies and savings that they could easily make. They were making the case that they'd like more funding and more assistance. So how realistic are these savings really? Has an impact assessment been done on the service? And it seems like the service is going to suffer and have to reduce what they deliver.
As Councillor, thank you for the question. As Councillor Cottle-Hunkin has said, we're clearly in the process of listening to what people are saying in terms of their uses of libraries and their thoughts on what we're setting out in the consultation about, as Councillor Cottle-Hunkin has said, use of technology, use of volunteers, potentially exploring communities taking on aspects of libraries delivery as they already do to some extent in Devon and certainly across the country. In terms of it's really important to emphasise in terms of impact assessment. No, that hasn't happened as yet because clearly we've not got anything to impact assess at this stage. We, in light of the consultation, we will clearly have to consider what people are telling us and then draw together a set of recommendations for which Cabinet need to make some decisions around potential changes based on the budget we've got. We've done an impact assessment on the delivery of the consultation itself, but in terms of any proposed changes of libraries, that's not been completed and obviously won't until we've had the consultation and we're in a position to make proposals to Cabinet about potential changes of models and some of those other changes in delivery that I've talked about.
You have a follow-up question if you want, Councillor Eve.
Yeah, so just to clarify, there is scope for making some adjustments following the consultation if it's considered necessary or valuable.
We're absolutely open to people and communities telling us their ideas about how we might deliver libraries in the future and the roles that they might have to play individually or collectively in delivering their library. I think probably what won't change though is the budget. Clearly this is a proposed budget, but in terms of the overall cash envelope we'll have to spend on libraries, that's not likely to change.
I see you, Councillor Sellis. I see you, Councillor Stevens, but I have Councillor Richardson before.
Thank you very much. It's another question on libraries, and I just want to challenge Simon, something you said about the consultation. Obviously, I understand that consultation won't be completed until after the full council where this budget will be discussed. But we already know what young people think. There's been a lot of consultation with young people with the revival of Devon Youth Council, and young people are telling us that they want places to go and things to do. One of the priority areas of this council's strategic plan is positive futures for our young people. And it goes on to say that our focus is on supporting our young people to achieve their full potential and helping disadvantaged adults play a full and productive part in our communities. Surely libraries fit the bill there. And on places to go and things to do, it goes on to say this project is based on the belief that all young people in Devon should be able to access affordable activities and places in our local areas, somewhere to go with friends for fun, relaxation, and to try new things. Surely a library is a place where young people can go and do this. So I am very concerned about this consultation and how it aligns with this council's strategic plan, because we know that there is going to be cuts to the hours that libraries are going to be open and staff. So how are we going to go and tell our young people that this is happening? And therefore, surely it's in opposition with our strategic plan and our priorities. Thank you.
So again, this is a meeting regarding the budget and obviously the potential delivery of what libraries might be in the future. It's probably for another day. But just to come back on your point, obviously, in terms of the consultation, we're targeting some specific feedback from young people. And in terms of our analysis of the consultation, we'll understand what young people are telling us specifically. I mean, a couple of things that related to the budget. This year, Councillor Cottle-Hunkin has introduced a new fund called Places to Go, Things to Do and Places to Go, £350,000, which has been co-designed as a fund with young people, with the Youth Council specifically, which, that money is pretty much all gone out of the door through this financial year. And young people themselves have decided where in their local communities particular initiatives and buildings should be made open. In that work, one of the things that young people were telling me, and certainly the Youth Council were telling me, was that they find libraries often a barrier in terms of their access, partly because of where existing opening hours sit, generally, kind of 9 to 5, particularly in rural communities, and often down to a couple of days a week. That means that young people are often excluded from existing opening hours, and they're really keen to explore how out of hours they could be places to do, their homework and interact with each other. And Open Plus we're keen to explore as an opportunity, particularly for young people, to use that space, use their library card to use that space after school and college in order to find quiet places to do their homework and other things. It's seen really successful implementation in other places. Manchester have 24/7 open access libraries that are kind of hubs for younger people in the evening, certainly.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, to add to that, it's just wanting to add to what Simon said. It's that looking at that long-term strategy. So the consultation is the starting point, and we really want to work with individual communities on a case-by-case basis. That's why we're committed to keeping all of them open, all 50 libraries, but looking at what the opportunities that there are within those local communities, and about have this consultation will allow greater flexibility in how we deliver the library service. So whether that is through technology, which I really believe has a lot of potential, and we've looked at how it works in other parts of the country, and it really is positive, and it does extend those opening hours, because at present a lot of the opening hours are really poor in our libraries anyway, and there's no without the consultation, there's no way to improve on them through using volunteers to open the library service or through using technology. So I really hope that we can expand on what's existing. Obviously, it will take time to get to that point, but we're really committed to working with communities to find out, and town and parish councils, and I've written personally to them as well, because it is more than just a book lending service. We know we really value our libraries. They offer so much more for our communities. So I think it's right that we should work together and find out what organisations do exist, if there are any opportunities to use that space differently, which could share resources, share volunteers to get the libraries open longer in the long term. So for me, this is the starting point to get to that end goal where all of the libraries are thriving, because they are great at the moment, but I think actually they can be better, and if we have more flexibility, we can get to that goal of having them thriving as community hubs, which they're already evolving into. So yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Cottle. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the responses. It's very good to hear that we are trying to think innovatively about how we use our libraries and using them as community hubs. You know, I appreciate talking about using volunteers, but I think there is a risk there that doesn't guarantee that service. And I also just want to ask about, have we considered the costs when you say about students using their school cards or things like that? That will require a significant technological investment, and therefore it's all well and good saying this, but has that been budgeted, those additional costs? Thank you.
We've set aside £100,000 of capital investment to start some of that process, certainly through piloting initiatives. So we made
Very sorry, could you repeat that, please, Simon?
Yeah, of course.
Mr. Kitchen.
Thank you, Councillor Sellis, for your question. So £100,000 capital investment to pilot some open access hubs, but we also made a bid through the Arts Council for technology investment through their library modernisation fund for up to £400,000. So that answers some of your question. In terms of the technology, it's tried and tested in other places. In terms of individuals, it is using their library card, so that will provide them access. And there's a short piece of training that each library member would use if they want to use that service.
Thank you. Councillor Sellis, I'm assuming that, could you repeat, that wasn't your original question, so we'll come to you then.
All right, thank you, Chairman. Regarding the library consultation and budget, where are you gathering your data? You mentioned it's all going to be data-led. That's one question. Would you like, Chairman? Would you like?
We'll start with one. We'll come back to you later.
Yep.
If
So the consultation is delivered through the same platform that the council used for its consultation around the LGR proposals. So it's a digital platform which allows pretty instant analysis of the data. So obviously we're asking a number of questions regarding people's views around the use of libraries. There's also a lot of free text space for people to give us their opinions, and obviously we're capturing some demographics in terms of the people who are accessing the survey, but also their propensity to use the library. You know, a lot of people who are responding to the survey aren't library users, for example, and we're capturing that information. But obviously some people can't access the survey electronically, so we have paper copies of the survey available in all libraries. We've had about 1,000 paper submissions, and we've reached out to particular groups who through sensory challenges aren't able to access the service through either of those means, and we're exploring different routes to do that, different solutions.
Thank you. Do you have?
Oh, I do, thank you. Well, thank you. Are you actually using the data which the libraries submit to Devon County Council?
So prior to the consultation, we produced a library needs assessment, which is based on a whole range of data from that the council owns, you know, particularly data from public health, looking at our communities in terms of the makeup of communities, but also includes a whole range of data from Libraries Unlimited around usage. So, you know, that details the sorts of materials people are using and accessing, where particular people are using libraries, their footfall, all of that stuff. So that analysis is brought together in our library needs assessment. That has informed the questions we've asked in our consultation. It has informed some preliminary thoughts about potential opening hours and changes to opening hours. And obviously that will form the basis of both an impact assessment and also our ongoing future strategy as Councillor Cottle-Hunkin has outlined.
So thank you. So just to emphasise, you have looked at the information and the data about usage. You've forensically scrutinised that.
Absolutely. And
right, that's absolutely fine.
And that's available in our needs assessment, and that's publicly available for anyone to do that scrutiny themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. We'd have a queue. So Councillor Stevens.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to pull it back a bit about the opening hours of the libraries. Have you assessed each library individually to see whether or not they can be opened all the time, or in some cases, like my local one, reduce the hours so it's only part-time?
Yeah, thank you. So the needs assessment obviously looks at the existing opening hours and footfall and those sorts of things. So it's allowed us to look at the trends that people are able to use the library, but also our consultation is asking people questions around when they would like to use the library, because obviously, as I alluded to, with younger people, there's a bit of a gap that some people in local communities would prefer to use it in the evenings when we currently close the library, and vice versa. So I think the consultation will allow us to put alongside the needs assessment, so the stuff we already know, with what people want to use in the future. And I think we're already seeing there could be a bit of a mismatch and a real opportunity to change some of those opening hours.
Do you have a follow-up, Councillor Stevens? Or
no, that's it. Thanks.
Councillor Kitchen.
It's very encouraged to hear about the idea of using libraries more flexibly. I think that's absolutely the direction travel in the future, and I think that's a great piece of work, and I wish you all the best with that. I think some of the larger libraries, like the main one in Exeter, should also be reviewed on that basis. They have funding struggles of their own, and there's obviously a capacity in those large buildings to bring in other services that are also struggling. The question or comment or note that sort of follows on from Councillor Eads' question was about the funding model for this. My understanding of this is that this is a sort of a baked-in saving from the previous administration, where they were looking over several years to look at how savings can be achieved in Devon with libraries, and that this is an extension of their work. Now we have a new administration. I was a little bit alarmed to hear something of the tone of this is a set budget, and you know, as a group of councillors here, we should possibly acknowledge that. I mean, my view is very different. This is a new administration, and there is flex to consider where we put our priorities, where we perhaps take a change of tone from previous administrations. I'm not saying that we necessarily have to, but isn't this the whole point of this exercise that we're here for today? So perhaps that's maybe more a question for the leader of the council or his portfolio holder, perhaps, than the head of communications. But my view would be budgets are have political interaction, and we've had a change of administration, and we're here today to just get the tone right.
Thank you, Councillor Ketchen. Councillor Ketchen's suggestion. Councillor Brazil, do you want to pick this one up, or do you want to dodge this?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thank you. And can I just say that it's very welcome to hear some of the constructive comments about this. We're in a position here, you know, 10 years ago, we invested about £20 million in our library services, and that has continually reduced throughout the years as the council has come under financial pressure. So we find ourselves in a position that we need to produce a sustainable service. Otherwise, we would continually just a salami slice and get a worse and worse service. Libraries have changed beyond all recognition, and in a way they shouldn't be called libraries, they should be called community hubs. And that's definitely the model that we are looking to do, that because we appreciate that they do so much more than just lend books. What the consultation does, putting aside the budget, is it allows that flexibility to see how we can reorganize and create a more resilient and sustainable service as far as libraries are concerned. And you can rest assured, and you know, and can I just say tribute to Cheryl that she is a true champion of libraries and made some of her political names in trying to defend the mobile library. So you know, I think it's fair to say that the right person is in the right place to defend the position of libraries as far as they can. It's fair to say, so we spend about £7.50 per head of population on our libraries in Devon. In Cornwall, they spend about £2.50 per head of population on their libraries. Obviously, there are differences, and so all of that is not just in there. But it does show that you can deliver a service much at a lower cost. And I've heard people here talk about volunteers. It's not just volunteers. You could have, for example, a pre or postnatal class in a library at a particular time, and the library would be open then, albeit not during its statutory hours that it would be opening. So I think we need to be imaginative and innovative about how we are going to deliver this service in the future so that it does become sustainable. And also I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Libraries Unlimited, who took over the running of the libraries and all the work that they do, because again, you know, they're a not-for-profit organisation. Their heart is absolutely in the right place. And they are working with us, albeit they always want more money, and absolutely, why wouldn't they? But I am confident, although there is going to be some change and it will be a rocky road, that at the end of it we will end up with a service that we can be proud of and will go on into the future.
Thank you, Councillor Brazil. Do you have a follow-up question, Councillor Hitchin? Okay. Councillor Arnott, are you wishing to speak, or if not, could you turn your camera off? Lovely though it is to see you. Thank you. Having a 4-foot high Paul Arnott in front of you is a little distracting. I mean, there are other obviously other aspects to this section, public health and communities. I mean, I have questions about libraries, and then we'll try and draw it to close. Does anybody have any non-library related questions on this section? Councillor Mitchell.
Just really for a point of clarification, back to my favourite topic, your savings. In relation to the sexual health one, you're predicting that you want the budget to match the contract. Could you just clarify that? Because there's £1 million involved in potential saving.
Please.
Thank you. Yeah. A similar question was played out on Monday as well. So we've renewed the contract for sexual health, and part of that is driving some efficiencies. Previously, we would commission with GPs ourselves to provide some of the sexual health services. That's now absorbed within the main contract. And we're also seeing some reduction in some elements of the sexual health service, like chlamydia screening, which is a pay on demand, if you like. So that's a bit rebalancing that budget, because we saw a reduction in the number of people stepping forward for chlamydia. So if you like, real savings, but no impact on the service delivery for Devon residents.
Thank you. Okay, so I should have said this perhaps earlier. We as members will have seen, the agenda is broken down into several sections. Our task today is to come up with comments to or feedback to Cabinet on this process. I propose that we sort of endeavour to sketch those out at the end of each section. I just have a few more questions about libraries. There's one. Councillor Bailey mentioned it, and at the Adults and Health Scrutiny Committee on Monday, the libraries were mentioned as an important vector of delivery for certain adult social care and public health activities and interventions. How does that interface with the changes we're proposing to make?
Give it a go. So thanks for the question. I think it speaks to the leader's point around seeing libraries as a kind of a community hub. So already we have spaces in libraries being occupied by mother and baby type classes, for example. We use them to help support, and Councillor Cotton-Hudgell was the ambassador for this ability, for example, to get your blood pressure checked and take home blood pressure. So there's some examples of how we use that as a community space. We know from the evidence the importance of having community space for people to go and visit, and whether it's around childhood literacy, whether it's around safe, warm places for people to go, whether it's around tackling loneliness and isolation. We all know these things are impact on our health and the health of the public. So in terms of seeing them as a broader church, if you like, than just somewhere to give books out, is really important, both in terms of population health and the public health bit, but also other elements as well. And I don't know whether you want to add anything, Councillor?
Yeah, just I'm on part of a group now, the Best Start in Life grant that we've been granted from central government, and there's a bid going in together with the libraries for that. So it has a huge role, and I hope with greater flexibility that will provide improvements for using it for those different types of services as well into the future, because that's exactly the type of thing that we want to see, and attracting more, whether people take out a book or not. I think getting more people into those spaces, socialising, it's building communities, and yeah, encouraging education. We all really value our library service, and it's making sure that it's fit for the future and thriving, and that's the end goal.
Thank you.
Just to throw in, huge venue for creative events as well. 8,000 visits and events happened in libraries last year. There's a regular silent over 60s disco at Exeter Library if anyone's here interested. And on the budget aspects, I mean, I get the feeling from the questions, if I'm allowed to summarise, that there's concern that we're somewhat putting the cart before the horse, and we've decided the money, and we're now deciding what we want to do under the consultation.
What's the profile, the timeline of the delivery of the cuts, efficiencies, savings, call them what you will. So we've got £650,000 of cuts, efficiency savings to be delivered over the 26-27 year. How are we expecting that to stack up, given that obviously the consultation closes at the end of February, there's then only a month before the beginning of the new financial year? How are we expecting to see those savings delivered over the course of the year?
As you've summarised, whatever the budget is, there is likely to be a reduction to make those savings through the course of the year. Obviously, until decisions are made around what those reductions and changes will be, it's difficult to plot the timeline of implementation. But there are if there are reductions in opening hours, for example, that is likely to happen over an extended period of time, i.e. not on the first day of the next financial year, and that will be with consultation with communities and obviously staff potentially impacted. But I think it's too early to give any kind of precise answer to that until decisions are even considered, let alone made, around any reductions.
Thank you. Okay, I propose to draw this section to a close. Oh no, I don't. Also under this heading, you'll see there's a line of £480,000 called locality, which we discussed at an earlier meeting, the localities budget. We at that meeting asked that sent to Cabinet the suggestion that localities budgets be continued in the new financial year at least that level. Cabinet came back to us and said, could you repeat this recommendation at your Budget Scrutiny Committee meeting? I suggest that we do so. I'll come to you, Councillor Richardson, and you, Councillor Ketchin, but I also think that the feeling at the meeting and the understanding of that meeting was that that localities budgets, except in the final year of a council, would be rolled on from one year to the next. But that wasn't actually formally included in our recommendation. So I would suggest that we consider adding that to our recommendation to Cabinet this time round. Councillor Richardson.
I was just about to say exactly what you said, so.
Thank you for not doing so this time then. Councillor Ketchin.
Yeah, I think the rollover is an important component, and I absolutely agree with you on that ground, but I think it wasn't made clear. So yeah, we should do that.
Thank you. So I mean, we're building up recommendations that Louise is picking up along the way, but by a general kind of nodding or nobody speaking against this, I presume you're happy for those to be included. Okay, if we can then just focus down briefly, and we'll wash all this up at the end of the meeting, but if in terms of preparing things so that during breaks and things we can give you something to look at. Would anybody like to suggest something that this committee could usefully say on, well, I'll do it and see how we go. So the sense I've got from members is that we welcome a more flexible approach to library provision and the ambition that that we actually provide extended access, if not technically opening hours, to libraries in various ways, be that technological or their use by other bodies, as mentioned. I also would highlight the concern that I've heard and share myself that it feels as if we're doing this a bit back to front, and that the budget prejudges some aspects of the outcome of the consultation. Does Councillor Mitchell?
The point I think we need to add is that we're looking for a long-term sustainable programme for our libraries as community hubs. This is not just a one-year fix to the next budget. We're looking for a long-term sustainable answer to the sustainability of community hubs, including libraries.
Thank you. Do members, as I say, this is not a decision, but this is a guidance for our excellent team here. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's good. I suggest in the wording to say putting the service users at the heart of decisions made. So whether that be young people, older people, yeah, making sure that the results of the consultation are also considered, even though it's going to be after the full council. But I believe it's still before cabinet. Yeah, just making sure that service users are put first.
Thank you. I mean, I would note, I mean, we hear the figure that we have a £2 billion budget, and the savings cuts, efficiencies that are identified in this section are 1/3000th of that. So it's, and I don't know about other members, but my inbox has lit up on this measure, and I'm sure those people will do as I suggest and contribute to the consultation. But yeah, I think I think as a committee we should stress the importance of these services to our communities. In which case we will move on to the next section, after which I promise we'll have a brief break, which is performance and partnerships. There's a bit of musical chairs going to go on, but it seems that everybody who needs to be seated for this section is already seated. So I don't know if Councillor Cottle-Hunkin or Councillor Bishkovsky wants to.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm one of the portfolio holders for the service, which focuses on rural economy and broadband. The service has been working really hard, supported me to lobby for more support for rural digital connectivity, and we've been engaging with communities and MPs on this to help the case. The service also supports rural workspace, work hubs that provide great facilities to help people start up and grow their own businesses. One is in Castle Hill in Great Torrington, which is where I represent. These are having a very positive impact on our local communities. We're supporting growth sectors and key employment sectors, working with the Devon and Torbay Combined County Authority, including food and drink, agri-tech and tourism. But the current government funding under UK Shared Prosperity Fund and Rural England Prosperity Fund are ending in September. So we're looking at how we can collaborate with partners such as the Chambers of Commerce to continue to provide business support.
Thank you. Anything to add, again?
Mr. Chairman, obviously this is one of the directorates that's got a number of portfolio holders, so I'm happy to say a few words on the performance element now, or I don't know if you want to have questions for the previous councillor first. If you could guide us how you'd like to go.
Well, we also have potentially, and I just put them on notice, Councillors Clist and Arnott, whose portfolios also have some overlap with this area. So I don't know if they are likely to want to contribute at this juncture. I'll give them a moment to respond. Do members have questions for Councillor Cottle-Hunkin?
Chair, could you please clarify that we're now discussing items that are on page 30 to 32, because the report is not that clear. We start with trading standards, which was the end of 20, you said up to 29. 30 is headed performance and partnership. So are we therefore talking about the budgets on 30 to 32?
Gary, would you care to clarify? I think there's been a bit of a slight oopsie here.
Okay, so yes, the page numbers are correct, Councillor Mitchell. Trading standards does appear under the commentary for performance and partnerships was in error. So if that did cause some confusion, we apologise. So on page 33, it does reference trading standards. Trading standards is part of the Public Health and Communities Directorate, not mine. It used to be, which is why there's probably a laggard statement in there. So apologies if that confused.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. The eyes of an eagle, as ever. I think that Councillor Arnott indicated he didn't want to speak. Councillor Clist, if you do, please let us know. Otherwise, Kerry, is there anything you want to add to what we've heard from Councillor Cottle?
So the savings obviously are set out in the papers. In respect to the economy, enterprise and skills part of my service, there is a reduction coming through which does relate to broadband. It's the Connecting Devon and Somerset programme. I emphasise this is not reducing the efforts around community engagement and communications. It's rather as a consequence of the reduced coverage in the airband contracts, we no longer require the level of contract management and technical assurance that we once did. Hence why with Somerset Council, our partner in this endeavour, we have put forward that as a reduction, but it won't impact on the delivery of the current subsidised contracts or the work that Councillor Hunkin has outlined in terms of lobbying for future investment in rural broadband. I'll pause there and perhaps we'll come on to performance and policy afterward.
Thank you. So on this part of this section, does anybody have any questions? Yeah, Councillor Julian.
Yes, I mean, I'm in a very rural area as well, but I find this broadband, I find it an absolute nightmare, because when we're doing master classes or whatever, you have to switch everything off or else it all pixelates or it breaks down and we can't hear one another. It's been going on for years, Chair, and I don't know how we're ever going to get round it. I mean, you can be in Africa and have a fantastic signal, and you can be here and we're one of the modern people and we can't even hear one another. So I don't know where we're going to go with this and get it sorted, really, Chair. If somebody could give us guidance, it'd be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Prospects for getting it sorted.
Yes, I'd love to give that a full hearing, and we are putting forward a masterclass with this scrutiny. So I think probably that is a question best explored at that juncture rather than under the budget item.
Yeah, we are seeking to include that on our work programme. I mean, it's I share your frustrations, Councillor Julian, although I think everybody who's alive today is a modern person by definition. But
should I just add that we had our meeting with BD UK, was it last week? And I expressed the need for greater broadband connectivity for our rural areas. For everything in life now, we need that connectivity. And I said, if anywhere needs a pilot in how to do those things, we are very willing in Devon to take them on and give them to us, because we want to find ways forward as technology develops. We really want to make sure that we can improve that for those people that are continuously being left behind.
Thank you. Councillor Barry.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out one thing that's happened in my area, which is unusual. I know we have some poor broadband connections, but also like British Telecom are taking some landlines away completely. And now I have a village that's not even connected. They take the landline away, but because of the broadband situation, they can't even pick up a signal. So it's much more bigger than just poor signal.
Thank you. I mean, we have had discussions on because that's not that unusual. It's happening all over the shop. So but as I say, we are picking that up as a scrutiny committee later in going forward. So I mean, that's not a specific budget related issue, but we will keep a close eye on it. In which case, can we turn to performance then?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillor James Wachowski. Within the Performance Partnership Directorate, the performance element falls within my portfolio. And over the last 8 months, we've brought together a single strategic plan for the council, developed through engagement with members, care experienced young people, and a wide range of partners and stakeholders. That work has been about setting a clear shared direction and being honest about our priorities and the outcomes we want to achieve. To support delivery of that plan, we're putting in place a new performance management framework. This will allow us to measure how the organisation is performing against its strategic objectives, with regular quarterly reports coming to Cabinet and being available to scrutiny. The intention is to strengthen transparency, accountability and learning rather than simply reporting activity. We launched the corporate plan in July, and going forward, this will operate as the annual delivery plan for the strategic plan, helping us translate long-term ambition into clear, measurable actions each year. Within the service, we're also developing a business partner model to support directorates more effectively. The focus on sharing learning across the council, benchmarking our performance with peers, and strengthening our understanding of future risks and trends so we can act earlier and more intelligently. Members will also be aware that we have a local government association corporate peer challenge visit scheduled for March, which will provide an external independent assessment of our progress and areas for improvement. Mr. Chairman, to address the £300,000 reduction within the performance team budget, this reflects a conscious redesign of how we would deliver performance support across the organisation. By pooling officers working on performance from across the council, we've been able to remove duplication, focus resources on organisational performance and maintain capability whilst reducing costs. This is a good example of how we are reshaping the organisation to deliver better value for money without weakening oversight or assurance. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions on performance? Just in this section, this is just as an example, really, as much as anything else. But obviously, this section covers skills and employment for post-16 young people, and therefore there's an overlap here with the Children's Scrutiny Committee as well, and that's just an example of joined upness. But Councillor Mitchell, stop me blathering on.
The point I was trying to raise, that we're talking about £16 million of expenditure on page 31. I know most of it comes in, is not on our budget, etc. But what I'm concerned about is whether we've got any clear picture now, because this work clearly overlaps with the work of the combined authority. So is this stuff that's staying on our books, stuff that's being transferred across to CCA? What is their relationship to this particular issue, which is effectively in their area of governance?
Gary.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell, for that question. The Connect to Work programme is a local authority-led initiative that Department of Work and Pensions has developed as part of their Getting Britain Working proposals. We are the accountable body for that. That remains with us. We've chosen to work with the Combined County Authority to help govern that particular activity. It does extend into Torbay and it also extends into Plymouth. In terms of Learn Devon, that very much remains with us as the Adult Community Learning Service. That's not touched by the Combined County Authority under their devolution. Adult skills will be managed through the Combined County Authority over time, but this budget reflects the monies that we will still be delivering next financial year. That's a live conversation with the Combined County Authority. At the moment, we would be delivering it for them under a service level agreement, and that is the operating model that's in place as we speak.
No follow-up, Councillor Mitchell. That was a comprehensive answer. Yes, Councillor Richardson. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just clarify something then on post-16 participation? There is a reduction in the budget, and is that because some of that is going to be responsibility of Combined County Authority, or is there another reason for that? Thank you.
So we brought forward Careers Southwest in-house during this financial year, and that is a small saving that we can make as we bring it in and integrate it with our current in-house provision.
Thank you. So just to clarify, that reduction is just due to a saving made from bringing something in-house. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? In which case, do we have anything? We'll round up this section. Do we have notes on this section?
No, I haven't picked.
Okay. So what I propose to do, therefore, is we'll take a literally 10-minute working break, where the notes so far will be displayed. It'll give officers a chance to change around for corporate services specifics, which is our next section, and and do come and see if we could, if you think we can fine tune the notes and recommendations, then do come, and it will reconvene at 12:15. Wonderful. So we'll, I hope members have had a chance to have a look at these recommendations, concerns, etc. As I say, we'll wash them all up at the end and try and get the shape of our feedback to cabinet. But hopefully that process will be quicker by virtue of having had a bit of a chance to look at them on the way. We're moving on now to the specifics of corporate services, the narrative for which can be found on pages 9 and 10 of your pack, and the analysis is to be found on pages 35 to 47. I have a list of the great and the good to speak on this one. I don't know who wants to kick off. Chief Exec, Donna.
Yes, as head of paid service, in terms of corporate services, we always look at everything we do through 3 lenses. What we're doing for places and people of Devon, so the performance aspect of the services, what that means for us in terms of a staff group and with our partners that we work with, and also how do we make sure that we deliver best value in both. What you see in the pages in front of you is that whether it's finance, whether it's HR, whether it's legal, and within those areas and transformation, there's a huge income generation in this part of the council, and I think it's important just to draw your attention to that. And also to recognise that some services that never get mentioned, I'll just mention our registrars who have navigated that change from Blackbeard House into County Hall, and expanding our services and making changes that they make a tremendous amount of income and bring a real sense of value and quality to what they do here in Devon. And actually they're one of those end-to-end services where they see people at their most vulnerable when they've had a loss, and they see people at their most joyful in celebration in terms of births or marriages or civil partnerships. So I think it's important to point out to some of those small lines in this budget book that actually deliver a huge service to people across Devon. Just as I would say, I mean, our payroll team, we might have over 5,000 staff in Devon County Council, but actually every month we make sure that over 14,000 people in Devon get paid from that team. Tiny team, huge amount of service, and I still remember that team sharing their performance, and a fantastic performance of the basically, I think it's like 1 or 2 people that they've not paid in that time, but it's astonishing. Maria.
Sorry, no, not that they've not been paid, just in terms of slight errors. So I think it was less than a 1.1% error rate before.
So a service about less than 1% error rate, and that's across multiple partners. That's our maintained schools. Equally so, I think it's important to note in that people performance best value that, you know, our coroner service, that we've expanded that service across Devon, Plymouth and Torbay and taken that regional responsibility. And that's really important that we show that capabilities, whether it's in registrations, whether it's in payroll, whether it's in the coroners, that ability to take on greater responsibility, improve the service quality, and also deliver best value. And a link to that, I think it's really important that a lot of our work in corporate services goes through the audit committee of the council, and I think it's important. I just want to commend the audit committee and the work that they've been doing with us in the last year. Has been fantastic in holding us to account, but equally so, it's great to see that investment in cyber security in the budget papers today. #1 risk for us as an organisation is that cyber risk and the impact it could have on delivering some of the services that I've just commented upon. So we really welcome that investment. And finally, I think it would be, it has to be opportune for me to talk about our financial team as part of the service delivery. They were, you know, shortlisted for national awards in the last year. They have taken on that along with ICT. We've brought in a new finance system. I think it was 30 years old, and that's been delivered in the last year. But equally so, if you look at the income they do generate for us, the work they do across all aspects of the council. And also, since it's the final scrutiny committee in terms of the budget for the Director of Finances, and we have a very much a Matt and Catherine and the team that will step in as I grow our own strategy, and delighted about that. But I think I just have to note that the work, although Angie's last budget she's been working on, it's as if she's got double the energy at the moment and double the ideas. So I just have to say, often people comment as people finish their service that they do less work. It is the opposite with our Director of Finance. And also I think it's important for our staff listening today. Angie came in as a young trainee into Torridge Council, and I think it's an absolute role model that starting as a trainee, an apprentice at the time, she has spent all those years working for council services and local government in Devon, and sits here as the Director of Finance. And to all our apprenticeships and our trainees out there, I think that's a fantastic role model. And also for Devon to show that we can grow our own talent and have the ability to have people in key positions. So just thank you, Chair, for allowing me to say that, but I just couldn't say it because she has been absolutely instrumental in the work of putting this budget together. Thank you.
It was my intention to extend my thanks to Angie at the end of this meeting, so way to steal my thunder, Donna. But I'll take the opportunity to do so now. Thank you for that introduction. Does anybody have anything to add, or shall we move on to members' questions? I'd highlight that this, obviously, corporate services underpins the work of all the other areas that we heard about earlier on: children's services, health, adult social care. So you know, it's would have been called head office back in the day, wouldn't it? But we have to have new names for everything all the time. Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair. Really following on from that point, on page 38 with the expenditure, we're shown on legal services with a net expenditure of 5.3 million. Do we in any way hypothecate that service across the service providers who are using the services within the council, so we've got a better idea of which departments are calling upon legal costs? And then if they're costed against their budget, would they not be more careful in ensuring that they're getting value for money for legal services and legal actions they are taking, and we therefore as a council are better informed about where that 5.3 million is being spent?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and that's definitely for me. So we actually did the opposite. They used to sit within departments so far as disbursement spends and effectively spends that were happening within different departments of the council, and we pulled it all into legal so we can track it better and control that spend differently. So you may want to, almost the gatekeeper sits within my team and within legal, so that actually we control what's been spent on external legal costs, what's been spent internally, whether we are maybe prosecuting or defending the right matters, and if we do need to instruct external counsel, then again that has to go through a rigorous process within the legal team to go through that instruction and make sure actually we're getting value for money, we're doing it for the right reasons, and the cases we should be defending or prosecuting. So the answer is, do we track to the penny what's with each department? Not at the moment, but we're getting closer to that on our performance structure. So the aim is that my case management system, Spitfire, should be able to, in time, track exactly what we are spending on every case in every department. I haven't got that exact detail at the moment, so I can tell you what we spend externally. I can tell you what the team costs. But case by case at the moment, no, but that's something that we're working towards. And we do track everything that we spend so far as disbursements and all of the external costs. So that'd be things such as childcare proceedings, where we maybe have expert reports, or disbursements of other spends that they all sit within legal. And it was a conscious decision that we did that so we can track and know exactly where the spends are.
So at some future stage, would a scrutiny committee be able to look at the legal budget and see that breakdown and look at the cost analysis across different departments and draw whatever conclusions they wish from that evidence.
Yes, but not immediately be my answer on that. But yes, more than happy, and I'd actually welcome that.
We'll look forward to it. Donna.
I think what would be helpful, that'd be a fantastic piece of scrutiny because it's required. I think the other part of that scrutiny is in recent times, we've developed a very different relationship with the judge. We have evidenced a huge change in some of the outcomes linked to children's social care and our relationships in cases. And also, you know, what we've never been able to exemplify, but I think it's really important, is actually how much money the legal department saves the council in terms of the litigation that we face, which is huge on an annual basis. So I would absolutely welcome scrutiny in this area because some of those partnerships are really important, and also some of those performance issues need to come through. So there's one example where we've improved performance in one legal process by over 70%. And that's the work between local courts, legal services and children's services. But I think we should have that lens on every part of the legal challenges that come into the council. So absolutely support that as a performance issue as well as a best value issue.
Thank you. Councillor Sellis.
Thank you. Just about performance, and we've heard that the IT has been updated. Is the IT system now communicating better and appropriately with all the multidisciplinary tiers? Because previously health and social care have had difficulties, just for an example. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're on track with the JAX project, which is led by the Director of Transformation, and I'm really pleased that that is an adults and children's case management system. So we need that implemented in 2026 to get that one version of the truth, but also to get it right for families. So that's a major area. In terms of the wider transformation around IT, then I still think as a staff group, and it's an ever-changing piece, that we have got to consider how to be much more innovative in that space. We all know at the moment and the opportunities or stroke challenges around AI, and I think there has to be, again, greater sight on that moving forward in terms of some of those risks. So, you know, some of those IT projects are working really well, and we've got them on track, but it's trying to understand the possible innovations that we need to do into the future. And I don't think we quite got that right yet.
Yes, please.
Thank you. And a supplementary, please. Are frontline workers who have complained about the system crashing, etc., are they finding that there are improvements, and are they still able to voice any concerns in an open and free way? Thanks.
The Chief Executive has talked about the new adults and children system. We're fast tracking the children's system and plan to have that implemented by the end of this year. So we have staff focusing on that specifically. So there will be improvements that will be tangible in the very near future. I can't comment about the specific cases that you mentioned, but very happy to speak outside of the meeting. But certainly, in terms of our staff talking, I meet on a very regular basis with both the Director and Deputy Director of Children's Services, and as part of obviously the leadership team, those issues that staff might be facing on the front line, we raise are able to be raised and discussed. So we have that clear line of communication. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? I have one which is you identify cost pressures of 3.8 million, of which about half, slightly less than half, is unavoidable inflation. What's the other 2.2 million in cost pressures?
Perhaps I'll come in and help with this one, Chair. So page 36 of the pack sets out the reasons for change within the revenue budget: inflation, national living wage and other pressures. On page 36, the 3.7 you reference, and it does itemize the inflation to start with, and then pension contributions, ICT, strategic investment, and so on. So it is set out there.
Thank you. So just looking at this now. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Mitchell.
Following on from that comment, on page 38, we've got additional costs to start to deliver priority service improvements, 760,000. Does that mean that's going to be an ongoing cost year in, year out, or is this just a temporary measure?
This again falls into my area. It's an ongoing cost, and it's actually funding staff that are already on the ground. So these were, I think it's additional FTE within legal and additional support from members in relation to admin and member support. So this is actually covering people that are already in place. It just wasn't funded this year, but it's continuing.
Thank you. Again, in terms of our ongoing work, the three scrutiny committees together have got a standing overview group for JACs, and we've held an initial setting, and there will be more an initial meeting, and there will be more meetings going forward. So closing this section, are there anything that the committee wants to feed back to Cabinet? I mean, I'd suggest that we welcome, it seems, to summarise, and you'll forgive me if I do this inaccurately, and correct me, no doubt, but that essentially we're moving towards better joined up, I hate the term, working and thinking, and I think that's to be welcomed, not only for the cost savings that it can offer, but also just for a better run, more tightly focused council. So I think, I mean, I'd put that forward as a welcome, which we are allowed to do. We don't have to. Does anybody else want to add to our list of feedback from this? Yeah, and we have noted the question of looking in more detail at the legal services budget. So I will take silence as assent and move on to the we've had the support acts. We come to the headliners now. But that will require a bit of musical chairs. But we'll move on next to climate change, environment and transport specifics. So if you'd like to shuffle around members, officers and cabinet members. Right, thank you. So we're moving on to climate change, environment and transport and the specifics of that service. The analysis is to be found on pages 48 to 59 of the agenda pack, and the narrative on pages 10 and 11. But I'm sure the narrative can be given in much more palatable form by Councillor Thomas, perhaps.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I mean, the narrative really is best shown by looking at the financial table, probably at page 50 in your pack, really, because I think from a county councillor point of view, that's the bit in which you're going to be most interested effectively, which is that part of the revenue budget, which is going on those things that matter. I mean, you will have seen councillors, the email from Councillor Five Cook, who's not here now, that went to all councillors talking about how there's an awful lot of money floating around. And of course, that's a really important point. But there is a lot of money, but a lot of it is capital money, which can only be spent on capital projects. And then there is the revenue money that we're looking at today. It's the revenue money that probably most affects you on a daily basis, because that's the money that is spent on the things that you as county councillors, and more importantly, your residents, want to see to be done to sort out the problems that you encounter in your, and I do as well, of course, in my inbox, because I get all mine and all yours. So never let it be said that I am not completely with you in that regard. So you can see the most important figure that you're looking at is that figure of 32.4 million on page 50. And that is really what we are playing with for the next financial year in terms of cyclic maintenance, which you see is almost 10 million pounds, just over 9 million pounds. That represents a 5 million pound investment in gullies, the physical drainage at the side of roads. It is 25% of that, about 2.25 million, is cleaning. So that will be ploughing, it will be puddle holes, it will be all the other methods we use to try and get the water off the road. Nothing could be more relevant, I would guess, at the moment than to talk about that. And then, of course, there's grass cutting, about 20% of that, which is just under 2 million. Of course, the message today, and the message you will always get from me, is whatever we talk about today in this scrutiny panel, and whatever we talk about in cabinet, however grateful I am for the price rises, it will not be enough. Because what happens, scrutiny members, is that revenue for highways has progressively over a number of years been hit and hit and hit and hit and hit, because we've had to spend money in other areas that you will fully appreciate. But we're going to talk about potholes in a different meeting this afternoon, and the cause of potholes and pothole trials. And of course, the biggest, apart from the obvious natural one of weather, the biggest cause is flooding and water on the roads. And therefore, actually, what I would really like to be able to say to you today is that we should be doubling or trebling that figure. And I know that the guys who look after that would say the same, but we have to cut our cloth to suit our coats. And the reality is this revenue budget that we are being afforded for this department, is more generous than last year. And as such, we're grateful for that. We will try and use the money to the best of our abilities, but it is what it is. I'm happy to take questions, but I mean, the basic principle is the report tells you what it tells you. It tells you what money is available, and therefore it tells you, more importantly, in many ways, what money isn't available, because the large amount of money, the larger amount of money is capital money. We can't spend capital money on resurfacing roads unless they are large resurfaces. The bits that you worry about on a daily basis have to come out of this revenue. And so you've had a long meeting. I don't propose to talk anymore.
That's very kind of you. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Just to give us the full scope of this section, this is also an area covered by Councillor Hodgson. I don't know if you've got anything you wish to add briefly.
Okay. I'm on. Right. Yeah, thank you. My cabinet portfolio covers the elements of this budget that include climate change, biodiversity and public transport, and that includes waste. And as I think we all know today and this week and forthcoming weather in the next couple of weeks, we continue to experience the increasingly dramatic and challenging effects of climate change. Our residents, businesses, farming communities, wildlife are experiencing these increasingly severe storms and extended dry spells, and where many homes are being flooded, homes are being flooded in the last couple of days. This all costs money and it all costs our teams time. Even today's meeting has been affected. So our budget includes strong measures that ensures we can continue to assist the people we serve with mitigation and adaptation to live with these effects, such as flooding, coastal works, asset works, how we deal with some of the roads, as has already been pointed out. And really what we're trying to do is to reduce our carbon footprint. And this is some of the soft stuff that will be within this budget, the revenue part of this budget too. And part of that, of course, is trying to make public transport as available as possible, because that's about 1/3 of our carbon footprint. And we're supporting the introduction of more active travel routes, which is working with local communities who have all sorts of things they're coming to us about, which is really good and really positive. And managing our national landscapes to help with adaptation and mitigation, and trying to increase our recycling rates and reducing waste wherever we possibly can. However, as has been pointed out, the current government funding constraints help make this far more challenging all the time. And I think things that we would like to address more fully, in particular, supporting less public transport to get more people having access, is difficult. Nevertheless, the 3-year announcement has been helpful and will help us to do more planning. As many of you will be aware, on the 1st of April this year, we will the new Devon and Torbay Combined Authority will become the Transport Authority. But Devon County Council will continue to have a role in the governance, but that actually hasn't been set out properly yet. It's my hope that this wider transport body will be able to attract more public funding and enable better public transport, in particular to serve both our rural areas and the urban streets. As you'll see, there's a list of services under this budget that are also wholly funded outside of Devon County Council, and that really helps because it's those grants really boost what we can try to do and enable our reach to go much further. So I would suggest to you that the proposed budget for 26-27, with the increases outlined, will ensure we can make positive progress with these important services and support the delivery of a greener Devon for future generations, a key element of our strategic plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. So that's set out the scope from Cabinet members. Officers, Meg, Paul, anything to add at this stage? Or no? Okay, in which case we can move on to members' questions. Councillor Richardson caught my eye first, followed by Councillors Mitchell and Eade.
Thank you very much, Chair. Both the Cabinet members have already mentioned about the weather recently. So I've just got a question about the spending on, say, the current weather events. Now, I notice we have funding under Councillor Thomas's remit for winter and emergencies, and then also under Councillor Hodgson's portfolio for flood risk and surface water management. What's the overlap there, and how is the money spent? Because, I mean, ultimately, this is one issue of, climate change, and there's no point saying preparing for it now because we are in it. So how's that money spent? And just on that, considering what's happened over the last few days, and it looks like it's only going to get worse with the upcoming weather, we're in an extremely dangerous situation here in Devon. What more can we do to push the government in Westminster for additional climate emergency funding to help us? Thank you.
Don't know which of you.
Shall I start?
Yeah, why not?
So the winter and emergencies that's basically the overnight. That's the gritting and getting the roads ready so that they're safe the following day. I mean, you will appreciate that this ties in neatly with what you're talking about in the sense that it's a very basic system. What we do, it's a really important one, and one that they, and it's quite a dangerous one as we've seen recently, but it's a really basic system that we put salt on the roads to stop the ice. But of course, if it then rains and the salt is washed away, you as councillors will get complaints from residents saying, why haven't you gritted the roads? And of course, the answer is, well, we have gritted the roads, but it is quite a basic system in trying to make the roads safe. But it's also one that involves a large amount of money in the summer season of keeping the gritters spick and span ready for winter, and the physical cost of actually carrying out the winter service. And it's one I commend to you as something that we should be really proud of, that the highways team do through the most appalling conditions But it's important where it overlaps. I'll leave, you know, Councillor Hodgson's portfolio is obviously slightly different, but I'll leave her to talk on that. On the last point, though, I know the leader is already very vigorously in his normal, robust manner, inviting the government to contribute, and they will, you know, and they will need to, because the reality is that you're absolutely right, Councillor Richardson. This is only going to get worse, and for coastal communities, it is a real issue. I mean, you've seen it all across. I know it was worse in the east, but of course down in the south at Slapton as well, it's been equally appalling, to the extent that, you know, the trains haven't been able to get through, and effectively the county gets cut off. So we need a significant boost from the government in that area. And I know the leaders on that. Councillor Hodgson.
So, yeah, we have a very good flood team. We've got a really professional flood team. They work with the Environment Agency. They work with people who work with the farming community. They go out and talk to communities about trying to do natural flood management and try and encourage people. And that's been really positive in the last few years. But nevertheless, people are being flooded. The more extreme weather is sort of, it's kind of overrunning us a lot of the time. So they are, each time there's flooding, there's reports that are produced which help people to understand what may or may not be possible. But one of the biggest problems we have is a lot of places are built just a bit too low to be safe. And so the flooding is very difficult. Nevertheless, there are investments made in people's flood doors. You know, housing is actually supported with assessments to actually help people stop the flood water coming in. And when there's a problem, you know, there is actually a team that goes out and helps clean up and clear it. But it's big. It's a massive problem, and it's, you know, I hate to say it, but you know, the warnings have been out there for a long time, and nobody was really taking much notice. And we have now a very difficult situation to deal with, but we are dealing with it through mitigation and adaptation as best we can. And hopefully, we might start to turn the tide the way we did with the hole in the anyway,
ozone layer.
Ozone layer, thank you. Yeah, so that's reversed through people addressing how we can deal with it, and I hope that we can get the same success with the climate change. But we have very professional teams, and they are out there. They'll be out there today.
Councillor Richardson, that answers your question. In which case, Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at 4 of the headings on the budget table on page 50, that's cyclical maintenance, routine maintenance, safety reaction, and winter and emergency. It eats up just over 26 million of the budget, so it's and you know, some of them could be classified as reactive services, in other words, like the winter emergency ones, others proactive, like the maintenance, etc. And I'm just wondering what flexibility there is for the highways team within that budget to have flexibility of moving those budgets around to react to current situations as they find them.
Well, I laugh because, of course, therein lies the Hunger Games of the Highways Department, Councillor Mitchell, because, you know, we have individual teams who are very passionate about how they would like their money spent. And as you can well imagine, you know, the deputy director and the director have that constant battle with staff who are wanting more money for each part of their service. I mean, safety reaction, in essence, is the fixing of potholes under a metre square. So you would probably argue that they have your support because you want your potholes fixed. But then, of course, routine maintenance, you probably want your white lining done as well. So they should probably have your support. We've already talked about winter and emergencies. And then, of course, the cyclic maintenance, it's your drainage, and you want your drainage cleared, Councillor Mitchell. So who do you favour? Because that's the reality. We could shift around. You know, it would be very easy as an internal cost measure to shift money around, but ultimately it comes down to a political decision of where the priorities lie within the ramifications of how much money we actually have.
I fully understand the dilemma you're in, but in effect you're saying that in year and in situation there is no ability because of the lack of funding to have any flexibility of moving underspent money.
Well, no, I don't think I'm saying there is no. I'm saying there's no flexibility. There is flexibility, but the question is how do you have to be extremely compelling reasons, wouldn't there? Because each of the areas you've picked are on their own of crucial importance. One could argue which is more important. You know, cart before horse, drainage before potholes develop, but equally we are where we are, and so it's a constant juggling act where you want the money spent. Director, you want to come in?
I could just add to that, the vast majority of the budgets that sit within this revenue budget for highways are very much safety related and they're very much demand driven. If you think about winter and emergencies, we react to the weather. It's not a discretionary. We look at the forecast and we act based on policy on what the forecast is telling us. We don't have the budget to do it. It's almost, yeah. You think about safety reaction, safety defects. We go out, we fix them. You know, it's not about do we have a budget. We have to go out and try to keep the network safe. Highway lighting, you know, we're doing what we can. You know, we're working with Scrutiny about reducing the park night lighting. But if the energy bills change, that impacts our budget. So it's very much safety driven rather than any kind of discretionary subjective decision that being made here.
If I just come to the back of that, Chairman, if I may, I mean, the best example of this actually is what you've seen in the last 24 hours, because actually the Highways Department is at its best when it just goes out and has to fix the problem, because, you know, the problem with the flooding, you can't worry about the cost in that situation, can you? You've just got to go and do the job. And I think, you know, if you were to take that as a reflection on how good Highways is, that would be a true depiction of the department if money was not an issue.
Thank you. Councillor Eade is the next on. Councillor.
Thanks, Chair. Following on from Councillor Richardson's point about flood risk and surface water management, and in the context that this directorate has overall a more generous budget than last year, and what Councillor Thomas was saying about it's always a balance of political priorities, I'd like to hear a bit more about the explanation for why the flood risk and surface water management budget is decreasing this year. What's the rationale and the justification for that?
I think I'll hand over to one of the officers to just give a better detail than I could.
So there's been an anticipation that the government will be enacting Schedule 3 of the Environment and Water Management Act. I think I might have got that act wrong name, so apologies. Because that hasn't yet been enacted, that's what the saving is. It's purely the fact that we don't need the additional staff to do the work, because that actual schedule hasn't been enacted yet in the legislation.
Does that answer your question? Thank you. Councillor Sellis.
Thank you. Have we spent the 61 million which the previous government granted us? And I would just like to say that Tavistock has finally had a lot of work done just over the past few weeks. And for the record, I know it's not germane to the budget, but I'd just like to say thank you very much. It takes ages waiting our turn. For going out in all winds and weathers and everything like that, I'd just like to convey my thanks on behalf of the residents. They've been really, we've been getting really brassed off with the state of the roads, and we are seeing the benefit of it. So thank you very much. So yeah, we spent all that 61 million that the previous government gave.
I can say categorically yes. I mean, you can have some detail, would you?
Thank you. Do you have a follow-up question, Councillor Sellis?
No, I just wanted to mention that the previous government did give some
money which we spent, absolutely. Councillor Julian.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to talk about the state of the roads, but not just talk about the potholes. I'm talking about the side of the roads where all the ironworks on the A39 in my ward that are all exposed and very dangerous. And obviously coming here in the other ward of Holsworthy, the roads are so bad on the side that if you actually drove on the side of the road, you would lose your wheels. That's how bad it is. It's being repaired. I understand it's challenging of the weather every year of winter. But the point is, what's getting me is that we spend the money, that's fine. But where's the guarantee for these contractors to come back and do it for nothing because they haven't done it properly in the first place? And this really is the biggest wind up with my constituents, that the jobs are done They're not done properly, and nobody seems to address that they should come back and do it for nothing, because they must be guaranteed for these jobs along the side of the road. We're not talking about potholes, we're talking about a side where they're all disintegrating, and we're talking about serious decay. I wonder if somebody could address that, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Julian. Yes,
I will
Councillor
happily address that, Chairman. I will do so by telling the truth, like I always try and do in these meetings. The truth, Councillor Julian, is very simple. Not one pothole in your division or in any of your divisions should, in all honesty, have been repaired since about November under the terms of our contract. Not one. Because not one of them wasn't full of water, wet, freezing, or suffering from temperature dropping down to that sort of level. 13 times since November have we had, I'm going to try really hard to say this correctly, freeze thaw. 13 times. So actually the reality is the roads have been completely shot by that weather, and we've sent our contractor out to repair safety defects because our first object is to make the highway safe. The reality is a lot of those potholes are going to fail. When they fail, we are going to have to go back at some point and repair them. And that is not the contractor's fault. That is because we have sent the contractor out to fix the potholes, because we have to do so because we are legally obligated to keep the highway safe. There is no easy answer to that. That is no different to what we were doing last year or the year before that. It never changes. The setup for repairing potholes in this godforsaken, wet, freezing country is the system that we have. And so your frustration and your constituents' frustration is the same as my constituents' frustration. But I think we have to start being a bit more honest about the fact that it's unreasonable to expect a crew to go out in 2 degrees when it's persisting down with rain and fix a pothole, and that pothole is going to remain fixed, because it ain't going to happen. And that's the reality.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. I'll let Councillor Julian come back in just a moment, but I didn't hear he also raised a specific concern about non-pothole defects, raised ironworks, etc., and the repairs to those. Do you have anything to add?
Well, I'm not sure. Well, I think the question was, I think the request was that they got done quicker. And I hear that, and I hear of the A39 particularly, as I did previously at the myth busting session. And I think the Deputy Director of committed to go and have a look, actually, didn't you? Yeah.
Briefly, if you would, Ken.
Yeah, just to add that, we're going to come up and we can go through in your division. Monday I was down in Tor Cross to look at the damage. The roundabout at the top of the hill at Carehouse Cross, our contractor surfaced quite poorly a few months ago, and they're coming back to redo the whole roundabout before the end of March. So we do that, but that's in addition to what Councillor Thomas is saying.
Thank you. Councillor Julian.
Yes, I hear what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, but these have been like this for months. They haven't come straight out to do it. It's still there as we speak. The only way I'm going to get this message over, Chair, and perhaps I should film it all so you can have a good look, because this is crazy, because they don't rush out to do it and it's not being done. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stevens.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I do appreciate a job that highways do. I think it's absolutely brilliant on the money you've got. But in reality, it is a perfect storm. It will come in the future that the roads will be undrivable. And it's if when I listen now, you sort of have to work with the money you've got, and you think sort of year by year, how long do you think it'll be before you'll hit a point where you just can't repair anymore?
Well, I think that's a difficult one to say, because if you think about the state of the main roads, many of the main roads are much better looked after than the minor roads. So if you were to differentiate in Devon between categorisation of roads, then I think you're absolutely right that the minor roads are in a real pickle, and it is going to get worse. But I think, what the asset management team are doing around surface dressing on the more major roads, I think will hold us in good stead. And what it typifies, in fact, is what we'd like to see across the whole network if the government only gave us the money. If we were able to surface, the Deputy Director talked about a road he was personally responsible for having resurfaced about 15 years ago, which has now failed, that you drove, a couple of days ago. And we were talking about the fact this morning it failed because it hadn't been surface dressed. We haven't had the money from asset management's point of view to actually resurface dress that road after 6 or 7 years. So now it's failing, and it will cost millions of pounds instead of tens, hundreds of thousands of pounds. That's the challenge we've got all across Devon. We are desperately trying to keep up with surface dressing of the major routes and treating of the major routes, and it's the minor roads that are suffering as a result. So and by of course minor routes, I'm talking about residential streets as well, effectively. You know, in urban areas, it's not just farm lanes. It goes across through all of our divisions. I can't give you an answer specifically because I haven't got a crystal ball, but we're going to carry on, obviously, on the asset management, certainly prioritising where we can based on use.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. I have the leader and the Director of Service have indicated desire to speak. Is that to this specific question? Okay. In which case, if you'll do that, and you, Councillor Brazil, is that to this? No, I'm just.
It's a sort of general point, and
in which case, can we save it for a little bit
course.
later? Thank you. We're looking forward to it already, but if we could just
it'll be worth it.
Remain on this point just for the time being. Meg.
I was just going to remind members that on the future work programme for this committee, you're going to be looking at the Highway Infrastructure Asset Management Plan. And I think that will be the time when you can really start to delve into where we're spending money, how we're spending the money. So it's just to remind members that is coming up on your work programme.
Thank you. A useful reminder. Councillor Stevens, do you have a follow-up? Or?
No, that's not all, Chair.
Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to say that since I've become a councillor, I think that the roads have improved greatly. I think an awful lot of hard work has been done by the highways team, and then we get this weather that we have where it's cold, then it's wet, and the road starts to fail. And one of the things that I will say about surface dressing, I had surface dressing going on in my division, where I had people who were delighted it was being done, and other people were saying, I want this stopped because one of the chips might come up and hit my car. It's a difficult thing. But that aside, the problem with the drainage and the water is our drains are now starting to fail because of the speed that this water comes down. The rain that comes out of the sky is like biblical rain now, and it then washes all the gravel down into your drain's then blocked, so the place starts to flood. The road then gets under even more stress, and there is not a lot we can do about it apart from maybe speak to God and say in somebody else's division rather than mine. Apart from that, I think something which is really important for us to go on as a council is the road warden scheme, where communities actually come together, especially parishes, where they can actually look at the roads and start to do some of their own potholes. The one thing that I would say, although we give them tar just now as the road warden scheme, I think that we should really include some sealant as well, because if you seal the pothole before you put the tar in it, it will last a whole lot longer. But I think the community buy-in of us actually working to do things that we all drive on, because everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody really wants to die. And I think that we really need to have the buy-in from the public to see that things can be done, the roads can be improved, especially for the lesser roads. The main road, the main roads are in quite a good state, but some of the lesser roads are in not such a good state. And the last thing that I would like to say, if I may, Chair, is I think that at the last meeting where we looked at the LG whip, where we got a road, a cycle path, I think that we really need to look at the way that people on the road are not only travelling by cars. And I think if we don't extend the infrastructure where people can actually use bicycles, because not everybody can afford a car, and if we can have less cars on the road and maybe some more other modes of transport, it would actually be a better place where people are fitter and people are healthier, and we would live in a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny. I don't know about officers, but I didn't discern a specific question in there. So, but thank you. Useful comments all, and particularly the points you raised about the road warden scheme and the and your last point. Sorry. Yes, carry on.
Yeah, I did actually, Chair. I asked if for the road warden scheme that we could actually have the stuff that actually goes in the pothole first to be added to what we do with the road warden scheme. That was my question. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not quite sure what budgetary implications that would have, but if Rob, do you want to pick that up, or?
Yeah, I'll speak to the team and the specification material to see the detail exactly what's been provided and what's required.
Thank you. I would just. I mean, there's an awful temptation when we get onto highways to sort of drift from our primary purpose today, which is the scrutiny of the budget rather than of highways operations per se. But with that in mind, I'll come to you, Councillor Keeble.
Thank you, but I do have a question which is related to that, and I welcome Councillor Thomas's first response to Councillor Julian, and I hope that the members recall that response. Essentially, my division is a rural area, and quoting Councillor Thomas, minor roads are in a total pickle. And that appears to me that, or rather, that ploughing and easements to get water off the road is a priority, and that hasn't been happening for some time. Verge ploughing appears to have been significantly reduced from, say, 10, 15 years ago. So my kind of question is, well, what are those savings by not doing the road ploughing against the increased costs of the maintenance? And I think that's a question that I think you'll find difficult to answer today, but I think that is something to actually look at.
Can I just check, are you asking where the savings are going from not spending that money? Because if you
no, my understanding is that around about 2014 there was a decision made by this council's administration at that point to severely reduce the verge ploughing. And yeah, what was that saving that was given in the paper at that time, then put against 10 years later, where we're seeing significant water retention in the highway, freeze thaw actually happening, breaking up the highway, vegetation staying on the roadside, like Councillor Julian was saying, producing then a significant danger to traffic with climate change of additional rain. It really kind of goes on.
You are alluding, I fear, Councillor Keeble, to the document Tough Choices, which is, as its name suggests, a series of very tough choices the county was forced to make around the revenue budget. And that's the point. So, well, I thought you were talking about savings. Of course, the reason why the savings were made in the first place was because we didn't have the revenue budget to spend as we'd had previously. And so lots of tough choices were made to stop doing things, which haven't come back, because of course the world hasn't rewrited itself to that halcyon place where we can, empty every gully every X amount of time. So I can't tell you where the savings have gone, other than to say that the revenue that's come to highways has done that, and as a direct corollary, we do things like ploughing and clearing of the gullies with less frequency than we once did. It ties into the question that Councillor Kenny was asking about the road wardens, because there are some jobs that through the leaders community protocol that we are trying to encourage parishes to help themselves to do, because we aren't able to do as often as we would like. And the reason for that, of course, is because of the depletion of the revenue budget to the department.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas.
I do indeed mean the tough choices, and I think everybody, all councillors need to reflect upon how successful governments have invested in the NHS and removed money from the public, from local council budgets. But still, what I would like, and I'm not asking for an answer here today, is what has been the impact of that tough choice to remove that item from the budget in terms of the maintenance.
I don't think
I'll forestall your response, if I may, Councillor Thomas, because Councillor Keeble isn't asking for that today. And if it's
I was only going to say I'm not sure we'll get it tomorrow either, Chair.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I think the overall point that sometimes savings can actually turn out to be the opposite and can create cost pressures further down the line, which I think is essentially what you're driving at, Councillor Keeble, is well made and
we are fully aware of.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Chair. So I see the planning and transportation budget is reducing this year, which includes the transport planning and the road safety teams in that area. So this will presumably limit our ability to respond to residents who raise road safety concerns and want improvements in their area, be it on speeding, unsafe driving, safe travel to school and things like that, which is the biggest issue my residents raise with me, in all honesty. And quite often when I raise it and we look into it, we're told that, yeah, there is an issue, but we just don't have the resources to prioritise it. So is it the case that when residents are raising these road safety concerns, we're going to be even less responsive to them than we are now? And what's the thinking behind this budget reduction?
Thank you for that one.
Sorry, could you introduce? I can't read your placard and I don't know who you are, I'm afraid. So
yeah, sure. I'm Jamie Holland. I'm a deputy director in the CSET Directorate, so cover planning, transport, road safety, those functions for the council. I presume we're referring to the 45k reduction in that line on page 58. Is that correct, Councillor Reid? The actual staffing levels aren't changing on the planning and transportation budget. So road safety staffing levels are the same. The transport planning resources are the same. So there isn't actually an overall reduction. This is a sort of a balancing figure, if you like, with other, because there's other pots involved, and we've also got some local transport resource funding as well that's coming in, which is external. So there won't actually be an impact on resources in the planning and transportation team as a result of this budget.
Sorry, and can I just add, it's also to do with the fact that we've been helping to fund a post in South Hams looking at the urban fringe expansion of Plymouth, and we gave notice on that 2 years ago, and we're resolving that through another mechanism.
For me, Chair.
Yes, you may.
So all that considered, are we sort of looking to kind of continue as we are then in that sense when residents are raising road safety concerns pretty much as we are, we'll be carrying on, there's no reduction or increase?
As I said before, the resourcing is as it always will be and will continue as it is. In terms of road safety, we work as a wider partnership with Vision Zero Southwest. So we work collectively with the police, other emergency services. So it's a much bigger partnership that we've got access to. So actually, I think in recent years, our support for road safety has actually been boosted by that partnership working.
Thank you. And Councillor Ketchen.
Just a question about the maintenance of bridges and retaining walls. It's not quite so sexy a subject perhaps, but it sort of caught my attention because there's over 3,000 bridges in the road network locally, and the pot of money is £400,000 thereabouts. Can we just get some clarity on what that money is spent on? It's under highway maintenance, but I can't imagine it goes much further than just inspections.
So that money is actually used mainly for removing vegetation growth on bridges. That's its principal usage. Some very minor repairs as well. I think let's not get confused later on when we start looking further on in the scrutiny pack. Of course, we'll come to the capital expenditure, which is probably where we'll spend a lot more money on bridges than you'd see on this paper. But this is about those removal of vegetation, ivy growth, those kind of things that help deteriorate the structures quite quickly.
Do you want to follow up?
Well,
Incidentally, for me, there's nothing sexier than the maintenance.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I can tell by your look, your reaction. I think what we're alluding to is as bridges come along and they're deteriorating or they need renewal, given there's 3,200, we look to manage those as capital projects in isolation. Given there's 3,300 of them, presumably it's a relatively predictable amount of money that needs to be spent, and that's managed that way, or is it absolutely a case of given 3,300 of them, and not many are going to last like Iron Bridge over 200 years. There's got to be a predictable amount of money, and that's still managed as capital rather than revenue.
Yes, correct, and that's dealt with within the capital expenditure. I have to say, as a local authority, we are very lucky that the majority of our bridges stock is quite old. If you think of the problems a lot of people are having with some of the concrete that was put in the 1960s and 70s, we're quite fortunate that we do have quite an old bridge stock. To a certain extent, some of the more modern structures can actually be more difficult to maintain. But yes, the kind of profiling of bridges and what we're spending on is something that happens through the capital programme, and to a certain extent is predictable. I suspect our bridge engineers would love to spend a day with you and showing you how interesting the subject is, but they will almost certainly, as soon as water levels drop, be out looking on the catchment areas, talking about the flooding, but looking at those catchment areas which have suffered badly yesterday, to actually determine what scour has occurred to some of those bridges, because that's the greatest almost threat to some of our older bridge stock. And for those of you who've been in the council long enough, you may well remember that we did lose a number of bridges actually on the Calm. One of them was on the Calm Valley a few years ago because of bridge scour as a result of flood. Those aren't predictable.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Go? Thank you. I have Councillor Hookway. You haven't had a chance yet. Well, Councillor Reid has already had a question, and we'll come back to you. But we did say at the beginning that we'd take turns to begin with.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to get some clarification, really, from officers. In my division, a certain public utility company has done a great deal of work and caused a huge amount of disturbance, but has also led to damage, long-term damage to roads, and in some cases, its contractors have deposited chemicals on the roads which have had to be cleared up. Can I ask, are we actually seeking financial redress from certain public utility companies that are damaging roads and causing us long-term expenditure? Thank you, Chair.
I think experience has told us that actually our ability to recover costs from whether it be individuals, farmers particularly, or statutory undertakers, anyone using the highway network, is incredibly difficult. In fact, we failed at Magistrates Court before because there's an expectation that the highway network will be suitable for the people that want to use it. When it comes to damage, so whether it be cleanup of spillage of chemicals, or it may be damage to people that have driven into any of our bridges or structures or traffic signals, thinking about Middlemore, at the moment, we've got an individual that is focused on cost recovery, and wherever we can, we try to reclaim, often through insurance companies, for costs of damage to our assets.
Thank you. So, in which case oh, sorry, yes, Councillor Reid, I'd forgotten you, but I've remembered you now.
Was that me? Is it? Yeah. Yeah, I see there's a line in for updating the waste and minerals plan, £100,000. As far as I'm aware, there are two separate plans. There's a waste plan and there's a minerals plan. And at the Development Management Committee last September, we agreed that the minerals plan didn't need updating. So I'll just have clarified what the £100,000 is for that.
Yeah, I mean the minerals, the waste plan runs until 2031 and the minerals plan runs until 2033, and we should be periodically updating those. The cost estimation is based on what we think the consultancy cost would be to update those plans. It's specialist work to refresh those plans. They're effectively our equivalent of a local plan. That's what our estimate is for carrying out that update. It's quite an extensive piece of work.
Even the minerals plan, which doesn't need updating, we agreed.
I think this is our understanding is this would be for the minerals plan that would be needing the updating.
It was the minerals plan that the Development Management Committee said didn't need.
Sorry, so the waste plan. The waste plan. Yes. Sorry. Sorry.
Thank you. I can note, I mean, I've been feeling the pressure of anticipation and expectation building and building. I don't think we can hold it back any longer. Councillor Brazil.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say just a few observations, really. I mean, first of all, I very much hope that the committee will recognise that we are actually putting in extra money as far as highways maintenance is concerned, and that is, you know, I'd like to thank all the work of all the officers in managing to find that extra money. But I just wanted to say that I've been a county councillor for a long time now. And I've heard various reports that our road network needs something in the region of £500 million just to bring us up to sort of to where it should be. And yet the funding that we have a year is about a fifth of that, if that. So in all honesty, what we have seen in the past, in the last few decades, is basically managed decline of our road network. And I think we need to be honest about that. And then what I would say about that is that there probably needs to be a national debate around how we're going to fund our road maintenance, because as I think it was Tony said, you know, what happens, you know, are the roads just going to disintegrate and disappear? You know, I've just come back from Europe. In Europe, they pay about 40p extra per litre of petrol, and they also pay road tolls. Now, people don't like those and don't want to have them, but we need to have that national debate about whether we are going to find other ways to fund our road maintenance, because otherwise, in time, they will collapse. And we've seen that already on some of our rural networks. I thought Councillor Keeble was absolutely spot on that point about ploughing and getting the water off the roads, because I think that in the past what we've tended to do is to make short-term cuts to save monies, but actually in the medium to longer term that has cost us more, and that's something that we definitely need to work on as a council, and particularly working in partnership with our parish councils and other community groups as to how we can be more use their intelligence and their experience and their knowledge of their local area to make sure that we're absolutely sorting out those local issues that will inevitably lead to road disintegration if we don't. I'm pleased to say that I think that there will be a motion coming to full council at some point. I think my colleague, Councillor Connett, absolutely around how utilities and other, you know, my view is they're taking the Michael. You know, they're pretty shabby at what they do. Sometimes they just cancel with no prior warning. Businesses are shut because they thought the road was going to be closed, then they don't turn up. The road's closed, nothing happens, and then they close it at a later date as well. And I think we should find them. And if we can't find them, we should support those businesses to sue them. quite frankly. You know, I think we need to be more militant and more upfront about that, because I just think that they're, as far as they're concerned, big corporation. We don't care. We can just squash little people, and it's not acceptable. So anyway, but I suppose my main point is that, you know, it would be dishonest of us to think that if we just put in a bit of, you know, the odd 10 million here or there, that we're going to solve our road problems. We ain't. You know, we are talking about serious money, and that is not on the offering from government. So, you know, I've listened to the debate with interest. I think absolutely we're all on the same page here, but we need to be honest with ourselves and honest with our communities that we can't create a series of billiard tables around the country. That's just not going to happen, and we've got to do the best with the restricted resources that we've got.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just finally to say that delighted that Tavistock's looking so good. But I know, well, that's good because it's good that because we're going to introduce the on-street car parking charges. No, I'm only kidding. Yeah.
I think Councillor Kearney was claiming credit for the improvement in Tavistock and elsewhere. And I think since he became a councillor, everything's on the up. Okay, I am going to propose now that we take a very quick break, just so that, and then we'll come back and look at the capital programme, and then that'll be the end of the meeting. We're sort of, I mean, given that we were an hour late starting, we're not doing so badly for time. I would also, just to help members plan their rest breaks, lunch, etc. We postponed delayed the start of this afternoon's meeting till 2:30. So, and lunch is outside. So the recommendations thus far, or the feedback thus far, is going to be going up on the screen. Have a look at it. Talk to Louise and the team if there's anything you'd like to do, and then hopefully that will make the bit at the end of the meeting that much quicker. So again, it's, if we can come back at 25:02, so 9 minutes, just to stretch your legs, and thank you. Okay. Sorry? Yeah. Right, we're back in session, please. So we're moving on now. Hopefully members, as well as availing themselves of the buffet, have had a chance to have a look at the recommendations. As I say, we will go through them in a bit more detail at the end, but I wanted to try and get as far ahead as possible on those. Moving on now to the capital programme and grants paid to external organisations, the risks and impact assessment. Analysis on pages 60, 63 to 77 and 63 to 77 of your packs, and the narrative on page 11 and 12. Debbie Haffenden, you're down to give us an overview on this. I don't know if you were aware of that fact or whether that's come out of the blue. Or if someone else would like to. No, we've got.
Not a lot to say, as you can say. I was slightly taken by surprise. I guess I would just point out that the figures on page 11 and 12 are the changes to the capital programme, whereas the figures on the later pages, 66 and so forth, are the total approved programme for each scheme. Okay.
Thank you. Members, do we have questions to ask about this? Okay. Sorry, Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure if this is the best time to ask a question about, we're on capital expenditure, aren't we? And it's okay to ask questions about, finding more money for certain things. Is that, yeah. So thank you. When Councillor Wilson delivered the recommendations from Children's Scrutiny Committee earlier this morning, one thing that committee is presenting to Cabinet is about potentially looking into bringing school transport in-house as much as possible. Obviously, to achieve that requires fairly significant capital expenditure and investment. So I just wonder, seeing as that will be a recommendation being brought to Cabinet, when can we start thinking that might become reality, if that is a decision that's agreed on, and where can that money be found? Thank you.
Thank you. It's a good question. I don't know. I see looks of puzzlement up and down the line. Oh, Donna.
Yeah, I think it's important to note, having heard all those discussions, that we have two areas of performance in listening to a youth council. One is that we have pockets across the county where our most vulnerable young people, either educated at home, coming into the, later on into that employability access route, or for some young people in terms of accessing the kind of education that they would wish and having a choice. Particularly the leader and myself have been involved in discussions about that 16-year-old pathway on. We know from the detail of our young people that there are fundamentally gaps where our young people cannot thrive and take up their opportunities, because quite simply it's impractical to get to certain colleges or to get to certain opportunities with apprenticeships at the right time for those opportunities. So we've been developing a map around about that and trying to think how we overcome that issue so that not any young person in Devon is left behind because of where they live and because of the lack of transport infrastructure. So we have been doing that piece of work. Equally so, we know that in some of the work, and I'll pass on to the Director of Infrastructure afterwards, we've been working with the teams to look at actually where, linked to our SEND provision, we have huge costs in terms of that whole envelope of home to school transport. And I do think that we've had some initial discussions about with some of the team in that directorate about where we could be more innovative and finding solutions in this space. We've been looking at some national developments in this area, so a huge amount of work is being carried out. So I'll go to director now to perhaps add commentary, but I think it is a welcome piece of work that needs to take place. Back to the bit about best value, I think there are a range of things that we could do differently. And equally so, I do think we have a responsibility to recognise that it shouldn't be that young people don't get the opportunity into employability or access to that post-16 provision because the infrastructure is not there, and it's very localised. And I do think it's something that we've heard needs to be addressed in some ways. But I'll pass on to the director now to add any further commentary.
Before you do, Councillor Richardson, I mean, and Councillor Wilson will correct me if I'm wrong, but the recommendation from the Children's Scrutiny Committee was that it be supported in exploring school transport coming in-house. So, I mean, I think that in terms of our role today as providing budget scrutiny, the budgetary implications for this in this year that are not already covered by the Children's Scrutiny recommendation are fairly limited. I don't know if you want to pursue this as a line of questioning on that basis.
Yeah, that's fine. But perhaps just as a clarification point, so if we're not saying that money is going to be within this budget, that's fine, that answers that. But is therefore for next year's budget, and as we plan for next year, will an in-house transportation option be explicitly looked at?
I've got several people. Councillor Hodgson, you've been waiting to come in for a little bit, if you want to address that.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say that there is certainly conversations going on at the moment, and it's going to take a while to shape it up. But I think one of the things that will automatically make a difference is this, where we're moving towards more local, where schools are actually looking at taking a more local catchment. And interestingly, I was at the Foundation Governors for Kevix, which is my local community college, which I sit on the governors for some years now. And the headmaster was talking with real enthusiasm and absolute delight that they've managed to convert a building which will be bringing 20 SEND young people into across a four-year age gap. So I think it's 5 years, so it's 4 per year. They're bringing in and introducing as of September, and was talking all positively about the very things that we've been talking about, not from the transportation saving money point of view, but from the actual benefits to the young people being able to attend locally and not have to travel so far. But that in itself will inherently bring those savings. So I think there's a kind of, it's coming from two sides. So I'm really excited by the fact that we hopefully will make some progress. The director of one of the directors of services.
I've got a big screen here too, so it's thank you. He's not behind me, he's in front of me, honestly. Mr. Jones, you appear to be muted. We don't know if that's at your end or ours, but we can't hear you, which must be and the little crossed out microphone isn't showing up next to your name, so my lip reading's not that good. I'll say it another time.
Shall I come in, Neva, buy Damien a little bit of time here? I think the important issue here is this is a matter which needs to be explored, and then it almost certainly will come back through some form of scrutiny process before going to Cabinet. So we're looking at this year's budget. That's something that Cabinet would need to consider. Just to say, the reason why Damien Jones is on screen is because he's been participating in actually some work around home to school transport this morning and Transport Select Committee. So that's why he's actually online. But it's something we need to do some work on, and we'd need to take it back through the committees So I think a little bit premature to start.
I think we'll leave that particular issue there then for the time being. Councillor Abbott.
Thank you. This may or may not be an issue. I wonder about the list of schools that have capital expenditure. I wonder where the division comes between when they're in trusts and when they're with us, and that I see one itemised element for a school roof, and I thought that the school was in a trust, and the whole question of expenditure, then if it is in outside of our governance, and what proportion might even go towards trust management salaries is just bubbling around under my mind, in my mind.
Don't know who wants to pick that one up.
So we only maintain the maintained schools, not the trust schools.
So I will look up this school and confirm then before this meeting ends if it's in a trust or not.
Thank you. And we'll, if you can pursue that perhaps, or if your Google skills are good enough, then do we have any other questions on the capital programme and grants? Sorry, it's difficult to. In which case, thank you to officers. So we now have. Oh yes, the risk and impact assessment. Does anybody have questions, or does anybody want to talk to that from the officer team or the cabinet team? If not, does anybody have any questions on it? Councillor Abbott wishes to come back.
Thank you. So the particular school in my area, and unless there's more than one River is apparently the Primary School is with the Moorsway Federation. I guess that's a trust, is it, or is that different? A federation is different to a trust. Well, who knew?
If nothing else, this meeting has served to educate you on that, Councillor Abbott. Questions on risk and impact assessment? Councillor Mitchell.
A generic question to the layout, because having gone through all this work with another authority, one thing we wanted as members was to know how often this is updated. Is it possible when these are produced, particularly when they're itemised items that relate to specific services, we know when that review last took place or that comment was last made? I don't know how historic many of these statements, etc. are.
So if I understand you right, it should say this is the risk assessment produced in January 26, refreshing that produced in October 25.
Sorry, in relation to the mitigations, it was when they were last reviewed, looked at. So in other words, if you were looking at page 68, you might have January 26 at the bottom of that list to prove that was the last time officers reviewed those mitigations to make sure they were meaningful.
I think that makes sense. We'll see what Angie thinks about it.
Thank you, Chair. So all of the risks that are part of the budget have been reviewed for the budget setting. So they are current. They will be submitted as part of the budget pack to Cabinet and County Council. They are then maintained throughout the year, and there's a live tracker that members can access at any time that will show how frequently they've been refreshed and changes that have been made, and the high risks are reported to the Audit Committee too. So there's regular maintenance, and that link is available for all members to look at if they'd like to.
Thank you. Just to check, when you say all of the risks have been reviewed, that includes the mitigations?
Yes.
Councillor Mitchell.
Just be very helpful if a hyperlink was put on the report, and then we as members would have that to go straight to the spreadsheet or whatever data format is there.
Happy to ask the team to circulate that, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any further? Yes, Councillor Hoogway.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, although it was mentioned very briefly earlier on, talking about the corporate plan, we mentioned the JAX system, which is being is being introduced, and we've had a meeting about it. And I raised the issue at the time about safeguarding the data, because there are very large numbers of users involved with the system, and officers took that on board and are working on that. But I think under the corporate risk assessment under ICT, I would be happier if under the comments regarding threat of cybersecurity, specific reference was made to the JAX system, because I think it is absolutely critical for the JAX system that cybersecurity, the protection of data, the safeguarding of vulnerable children and adults is absolutely central to that system. So I'd just like to propose that is included within the risk assessment there, please.
I'm sure we all share your view of the importance. Mr. Jones, do you want to?
I think that's critical, and particularly because it's, you know, adults and children's in the volume, and it's a huge transformation project for us. So thank you for raising that.
Matthew.
Yes, to back that up, very comfortable with that and very helpful for your contribution at the standing overview group. You know, I think a level of reassurance around the testing and security tests that we do through that process, particularly with a new system. And, you know, we have some beneficial learning from the implementation of Unit 4, which will help us with that, notwithstanding it's a different subject matter, but we have very rigorous testing processes which we're working with the supplier on as we start to implement the system. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope that answers your question, Councillor Hookway.
Thank you, Chair.
In which case, no further questions on. Oh, Councillor Ketchen.
It's a question on LC WIP funding. I noticed that the County Council, I think, got 4 million or something of that nature from 8 this year to deliver its LC WIP ambitions, which is sort of a real drop in the ocean, really, for a county of our size, and in particular in Exeter, there's been a very ambitious LC WIP. Can the, I'm not sure who, the might be you, Jackie, or with Julian, but can we have some commentary about how the in the capital programme the council plans to deliver on its ambitions for the LC WIPs, given the paucity of funding that seems to be available? Are we going to step in and fund it ourselves? Is that a priority for the council?
Just for clarity for people online, LC WIP stands for Local Cycling Walking Infrastructure Plans. So Councillor Hodgson.
I'll just give an overview comment and allow the officers to talk to you in far more detail about any finances that they'd like to. But in principle, we've got the priorities within the LC WIP, and Active Travel England has given us money which we've put into the top priorities. But one of the ways that we prioritise these schemes is the ability for them to deliver. And if something suddenly comes flying forward with money behind it that we haven't anticipated or has become available, then that starts to prioritise slightly differently on some of the schemes. And as anybody who was at Cabinet a couple of weeks ago will have heard, we endorsed the A377 active travel route between Crediton and Exeter. But really, it's because there's just bits of it that we can start putting it together as to something we can start looking for funding on. So things like that, where we've endorsed, and we're pushing things forward in phases according to how we can fund, because they're very expensive. But obviously, there are sections of them that sometimes can come forward. So it's probably sounds like a bit of a messy answer, but it's actually trying to deliver as much as we can with what we can. But we do have the priority system of the LC WIPs to anywhere we get the sort of bigger funding from Active Travel England. Does that answer the question?
I heard an answer there. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Ketchen.
The my understanding of the money from Active Travel England, having asked officers specifically about this, is that the money's available. It doesn't matter what the scheme is. We have to justify scheme expenditure scheme by scheme, but the pot of money is a relatively static affair for Devon, no matter what we have on the table. And so if we want to deliver LC WIP in a more ambitious form, as I've heard Devon previously said was its one of its visions, then the money has to come from probably internally or not Active Travel England. But so that is the aim of the question, is to set the ambition, and perhaps here that our ambition is more than just the little pot that we get from Active Travel England.
Sorry, if I may just come back, I think actually, sorry, that's the point I was really trying to make, that the Active Travel England is delivered and we have priorities to just push forward in that. But where we get additional funding or additional opportunities outside of the funding that we currently have, then we do utilise it as best we can on specific projects. I mean, some projects come forward because somebody's made, you know, a gift of land or sort of a gift of something that doesn't, therefore it's money in kind, as opposed to, you know, active funding that has to be sort of like scrutinised and put through. But nevertheless, they're all long-term schemes, and I think you'd probably be surprised if you looked into the detail how many bits of some of those schemes are kind of being sort of shaped up and pushed forward as prepared for becoming part of a full route. I'll leave the officers to answer that probably far more coherently than I just.
Much as I'd like to hear the officers' answers, I think we've pretty much covered that off. And I am cognizant that the members of this committee, not perhaps all of the officers, some of them have a further meeting later on this afternoon. So I'd like to move on if I may. And in the absence of any further questions from members, we're coming to the end, so that closes off that section on the capital programme, grants and the risk and impact assessment. So Louise will display on screen our sort of list of the welcomes, concerns and recommendations that have sort of emerged from this. These aren't resolutions. So they might be. It's possible for them in a way to be contradictory. So, but if we can just work, I don't propose reading them out. You're all capable of reading them silently to yourselves. So taking those first four as a block. Is there anybody who would object to any of those going forward to Councillor Kitchen?
I think if we're going to make recommendations, they should be recommendations. I think there's a lot of waffle in there. I'm sorry to say that. I think 3 and 4 are absolutely toothless sort of nods, and I think if we could just focus our efforts on putting recommendations to Cabinet, that would be helpful.
There is a section on recommendations further down. These are just, this is almost like our narrative in response to their narrative. Councillor Reid.
I don't know if I'm allowed to add one, but I just wanted to point out it was good that they're saying they're lobbying government to recognise the specific factors of disadvantage that a rural county like Devon has. A lot of this comes back to us not getting the funding that we need, and that's something that I think we should encourage to keep pushing for.
We welcome. Yes, that has been picked up in the adults and children's one. So, but we can join our name to that. I think happy to do so, and to keep the. Sorry, waffle, and I can't remember what the other term was, but to a minimum. So, as a whole, do we think that's a fair reflection of? I mean, given that we've got other things that we raise lower down, but of the discussions we've had this morning and early afternoon. Okay, moving on then to the concerns that we've identified. I suspect this might. Slightly more contentious. Again, as Councillor Reid.
Agree with the library concern. Are we going to have a recommendation as well, perhaps on the lines that we'd like a rethink of the scale of the cuts to the library service?
Yes, well, we've got at the moment a draft recommendation. If whether we can scroll quickly down to, I mean, it's this number 4. Okay, so let's go back to the concerns. So you'd like to, could you just clarify what you'd like to add in?
Well, that's fine as a concern, as long as we also have a recommendation for what we want done.
Okay, if you could, whilst we're moving down, if you could give some thought to how you'd like to phrase that, that would be wonderful. How you'd like us to, Councillor Mitchell.
Suggest as a matter of process, Chair, that we deal with each recommendation one at a time, because the rest is commentary in effect, and this is the recommendations that count. The other is, as Councillor Ketching, but it's window dressing. In effect, what we're saying is this is the actions or considerations we'd like the Cabinet to take on board, and rather than go through them as a sheet, could we just vote on them one at a time?
When we get to them, Councillor Mitchell, yes, we're still in the concerns at the moment. I was looking for signs of assent that those reflect the concerns that have been, those two items, number 1 and 2 on the screen, the first number 1 and the only number 2, that those, I just want to make sure that members are in agreement that those more or less reflect the specific concerns that have been raised over the course of the morning. In which case we will now move on to the recommendations, which I'm happy to take one by one. So addressing this first one. If you want them moved, yes, I move that we recommend this, make this recommendation to Cabinet. Seconded. Those in favour? True, we haven't had any voting this morning, so it's great. Thank you. Anybody against? For form's sake, abstentions? Also for form's sake, right, that's unanimous. Moving on to recommendation number 2. This is doing Cabinet's bidding and repeating our recommendation from our September meeting. So hopefully, okay, I'll move that from the chair, seconded by Councillor Ketchin. Those in favour? Oh, sorry.
Position about rolling forward.
Number 3. We're taking them one at a time, Councillor Mitchell, because somebody asked us to do that. So voting on, so item number 2, recommendation number 2 has been moved and seconded. Those in favour, please. So that's unanimous, and therefore item number 3, which is the rolling over of locality budgets, that seconded by Councillor Kitchen.
Just
I'm moving all of these from the chair.
Just a point of order, of course, if we have new unitary authority elections in 27, how does that impact upon that, particularly if you've got members who are standing for the new unitary authority and members who are not standing for the new unitary authority?
My understanding is that the unitary authority elections will be in May 27, and therefore after the end of the financial year in question. So are we happy to move the rolling over one? Those in favour? Thank you. Councillor Reid, this is the library's one. I mean, if you're, I don't know if you want to suggest a modification to the language here, an addition, a removal.
It doesn't seem to request change to the funding allocation, which was the main. I thought the main concern, we were all concerned that the cut was very steep and perhaps should be rethought. I'm not sure if that fits with the rest that's in there, but maybe it does.
We can we can certainly, I believe, recommend that Cabinet take another look. Discuss further.
I didn't quite pick up on what you wanted.
What's your mic?
I didn't quite pick up what you were asking Cabinet to do. Sorry, could you just reiterate for me, please?
I just want a line in somewhere requesting or stating our, I don't want to mix concerns and recommendations, but we're concerned at the scale of the cuts. Could the Cabinet rethink if they're really necessary to this level for the library service?
Oh, Councillor Richardson, you also want to come in.
Thank you, Chair. To me, as that is written, it suggests that our recommendation to Cabinet means that they should not make any decision until we have gone through the scrutiny process. And therefore, I mean, I might be wrong in reading this, but to me, that seems like we're recommending that decision should be stalled for several months, because obviously this isn't going to come back to scrutiny for several months.
I think what we need to, for myself, I think that what we need to address is the articulation between the results of the consultation and then how that is then implemented on the ground, and where it is best for us to scrutinise that process. My feeling is that it lies between the two. Before the final decisions are taken on how the consultation is expressed in the provision of services, that we should have a role there rather than afterwards. Councillor Ketchen.
I agree with you, Chair, but what we're doing is not talking about the service. We're talking about the budget and what we're recommending to Council Exec Cabinet for the budget. And so we need to have clarity on, are we asking them to just forestall, have a risk in the budget, and quite how we articulate our concerns about the budget. That's what we need clarity on, because the delivery of service will be determined by that budget. And we're actually being told today that we've got 14,000 people who've made submissions, have their ideas, and we're not going to get that information, that granularity back from the public before the budget is set. So we either say, stop these cuts, recommend stop these cuts because we need to hear from the public, or we're putting the cuts through on the nod without having had the granularity of vision from the public. So that's the dichotomy to me.
It's a dichotomy to me as well, and I don't know quite how we. Maria, you want to come in?
So I think you're quite right. The question that's been put is, are you asking for more money, or are you asking that actually the envelope is where it is? So we have to set a balanced budget. That's a full council decision, which will happen in February. That's our legal requirement. So are you asking that you come back and you see the views of the consultation and how that's going to be implemented? But you are setting the envelope effectively, and that will be set in February by full council.
I believe that we've got at number 4 here, we've got a reconsideration to find out if there's any other way of balancing the budget whilst leaving the financial envelope at least at current levels without making this, reducing the £650,000 cut. So that's the first part. And then we're asking that we get a chance to look at it between knowing, as Councillor Ketchen says, knowing what our residents have said about the matter, and the definition of how the services are provided. So I think we're asking for both. I mean, I would also note and thank Cabinet members and officers. I mean, you know, we're writing this down on paper, but everybody's been in this room and listening carefully, and And so I don't think there's any chance that the message hasn't got across. But as I think.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add some clarity. What's written there, you're asking Cabinet to reconsider. You're not asking Cabinet to increase the budget. So just to be pedantic, the reconsideration could be an increase to the saving rather than a reduction, which I think was the general gist of the conversation. So it's just absolute clarity on what you're asking Cabinet to consider.
Okay, so we can well, just we'll reword that quickly. Thank you. Okay, so on because we're taking these one by one, okay? Lou needs a little moment more with 4.
No, does that? Sorry, a lot of conversation on 4. So I just want to. I think what you were getting at, Councillor Ketchen, is that this was being proposed in the budget ahead of the consultation ending. So I've made sure I tried to make that more explicit. So I've had Councillor Rake propose the recommendation. It's just about seconding that, but making sure that I've also got that a bit more explicit in what you were asking for. All of you, sorry.
Okay, so Councillor Reid, are you?
That's why I raised the initial idea of 4, and as it's written now, I think I'm happy with that. I think that gets the point across.
Splendid.
Sorry.
Councillor Sellis.
Well, I'm just confused. I think that is a bit clearer, but I'm almost verging on the abstaining because I'm not clear about what I'm. It is unfortunate the way that this has been organised, but I don't think I've anything really valid to add, Chairman.
Okay,
other than I'm confused.
I'd love to be able to help get you out of the fog of confusion. I'm not quite sure how. So, to my mind, we've got good. Well, we've got 2 recommendations here. One is that we ask Cabinet to we send them homeward to think again, and the other is that, irrespective of what happens in the budget for libraries, that somewhere in the process and before any final decision is made on reshaping the service, that we are able to scrutinise the outcome of the consultation and the way that the thinking is then that the service will be reshaped. So those are recommendations 4 and 5. Councillor Mitchell.
Wondering, Chair, whether you need any officer's advice on this, that this is preferably does not cause issues as far as setting or establishing a budget is concerned?
No, absolutely fine, because this is all within the budget envelope. We're comfortable with it.
In which case, I'll move recommendation 4. Anybody second it?
I'll second.
Councillor Reid, seeing as he was a rush of hands there. Thank you. Gosh, it's okay. Those in favour? Anybody again? Do we count that as unanimous? Okay. And if anybody wants to abstain or okay, and then recommendation 5. which is the looking at it before it happens thing. Councillor Richardson, are you seconding? Lovely, thank you. Those in favour? Perfect, thank you. Recommendation 6 is that we have this increased visibility on the spending in legal services. I hope this is fairly uncontentious. I'm going to ask Councillor Mitchell to move this, seeing as he raised it, and I'll second it on this occasion. Are we happy with that one? Those in favour? Lovely. Thank you. Recommendation 7. I'm just, are we missing an apostrophe in leaders? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Before, in this instance, there is only one leader. Kim Ju Lan, as he's known. Is that a request for severe?
Yeah, I think we need to separate out the difference here between the Bellwyn funding and that. Can we just get clarification on that? And we're saying something quite different about Devon. So can we get clarification from the director, because there could be an argument that the Bellwyn fund approach takes account of this, but it doesn't. So I think we need to be more specific in terms of what this means.
So Bellwyn funding is much more about clearing up after incidents. The requirement for capital funding was changed, I think, about 10 years ago, as a consequence possibly of Bellwyn claims that were submitted about that time. But so the Bellwyn is purely about clearing up after incidents and within a very short time scale as well. Whereas this is much more, I think, about actually trying to make us more resilient to the changes that we're seeing.
Okay. In which case, is people clear on that one?
Perhaps, Chair, we need the wording which actually says separate to the Bellwyn scheme, because I don't think the context of Devon is served well within the Bellwyn scheme, because it's much longer term impacts that we experience. But the loan fees piece we discussed earlier, but I think we need to make that separation quite clear.
And clear it now is. Happy with that, Donna? Yep, down the line. I'll move this one from the chair. Anybody second it? Not such a flood of hands that time. And Councillor Kearney seconded. Those in favour? Thank you. And these last two, which are, well, I'll take them separately. Why not? Hey. Linked to the live register as requested by Councillor Mitchell, and a sensible idea and as accepted as such by Angie. So are we happy with that one? Councillor Mitchell moved it, Councillor Hookway seconded it. Those in favour? It's going swimmingly, thank you. And the Jacks, one, Councillor Hookway is proposing that one. Anybody? Councillor Richardson seconded. Those in favour? Lovely. Anybody? No, that's unanimous as well. Okay, thank you. Is there anything missing? Is there anything missing? Are there any recommendations that someone would like to tack on out of the blue? We've got 10 minutes until our next meeting. I suggest that sandwiches come before recommendations. As I say, the members of the Cabinet, senior officers have been here throughout and will have drawn their own conclusions. Before we
do close, I thought this morning there was a unanimous decision on all votes, on all recommendations. Was that so?
I believe so, yes.
I think that the committee ought to congratulate itself for actually having a debate and having a listening and having a unanimity of purpose.
I think since Councillor Kearney became a councillor, things have improved immeasurably. So the credit's all down to him. Grab a sandwich and we'll be back at 2:30. Thank you. Oh, and before we go, I would just like to reiterate our thanks to Angie, not only for all her hard work on this, which I can bear testament to, but also in previous years and throughout her career. And thank you very much.